Good evening and welcome everyone to tonight's study session. And thank you for our very special guests in attendance tonight. Agendas for study sessions, including concept reviews, can be found by visiting Broomfield's website at broomfield.org. Our agenda this evening includes one presentation and a proclamation and two study session items. Seeing there are no concept reviews on the agenda this evening, there won't be any public comment except for after the proclamation. You can watch the study session live on Channel 8 and through video streaming on Broomfield's website, broomfield.org/council meetings. For our hard of hearing residents present, we have wireless headsets available in the back of the council chambers through our AV team. The first item this evening is a presentation from Broomfield Heights Middle School and Emerald Elementary's No Place for Hate coalitions and a proclamation declaring April 17th, 2025 as No Place for Hate Day in Broomfield. We will start with the presentation. Will the representatives from the No Place for Hate Coalition please come up to the podium and share your presentation with us?
Okay, hello everybody. Thank you for being here and thank you for introducing us. My name is Lola Powell. I'm in 8th grade, and why No Place for Hate matters to me is because I don't want anybody to ever feel like they're unsafe or feeling bullied wherever they are. I think that everywhere should be a safe place for everyone, and so that's why this organization has always meant so much to me.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. So this is just a brief overview of what we do as No Place for Hate. At our school, we like to, and I'm sure other schools too, we address hard topics because sometimes things that should be talked about and brought attention to are kept in the dark. We like to connect with our community. Probably one of my favorite things is planning activities and educating people and about what we do and trying to prevent bullying and making everybody feel welcome. And then the main thing, trying to prevent bullying, we want to make everybody feel safe and welcome everywhere that they are. Next slide, please. Okay, now we'll the Emerald Dragons, please come up and present.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us this evening. We are very grateful for your time. Emerald Elementary School is a No Place for Hate school and has been for 12 consecutive years. We are very proud of this achievement and work.
Thank you, BHMS, for taking the initiative with this. We really appreciate your time. Being a No Place for Hate school means that we create a welcoming and inclusive environment where all students, staff, and community members feel valued, respected, and safe, regardless of their race, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or other characteristics.
Slide, please. We are very proud to have 30 student members from 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade alongside support Mr. B, Miss Williams, and Dave and Jerry, who volunteered their time to support this program. As students, we feel this is worthy of our focus for our energy and time.
We meet bi-weekly on Mondays and discuss ways to make our school a better place for everyone. That makes everyone feel welcome, safe, and like they belong. A school that stands up to bullying allies upstairs.
Go ahead, we can move forward a slide.
We do several activities throughout the year. Here are a few. Wear Pink Day for anti-bullying because at Emerald, we believe colors are for everyone. Our Chalk the Walk, where positive messages and pictures are written by students for everyone to read. In our annual resolution of respect.
The resolution of respect is written by the No Place for Hate Student Coalition and is signed by everyone at Emerald and reads as follows. The staff and students at Emerald Elementary School to make the best school possible will
treat everyone equally and be mindful of the impact of our decisions. Be responsible and respectful everywhere and to everyone. Control our impulses so we can be kind to everyone. Respect our differences and unique identities. Show our fire at all times.
Our diversity matters. It is a superpower. At Emerald, we have approximately 17 languages and 15 countries represented alongside economic diversity. Creating a welcoming community committed to stopping all forms of bias and bullying feels more important than ever and is something we strive for every day.
Next slide.
Through lifelong learning, we hope that in working to eliminate hate in our schools, we can provide safe, inclusive spaces and communities for everyone. We know that this is a goal for the city and county of Broomfield too, and thank you very much for your support and partnership.
Can we go to the next slide, please? My name's Colette Ariano. I'm in the 8th grade, and No Place for Hate is important to me because I like to help eradicate bullying, an issue that has existed within our country, community, and entire world for generations.
My name is Aria McDermott. I'm in 8th grade, and No Place for Hate is important to me because it makes myself and many others around me feel accepted in our community.
At our school, just like Emerald Elementary, we have a pledge. We take data from our students at our school to see what is important to them in terms of bullying and hate.
We then created a pledge using this data. After signing the pledge, students better understood what No Place for Hate is about.
We find it important to reflect our community and students within our pledge because it's something that they're all signing. We want to honor their opinions and what's going on within our school.
Next slide, please.
Hi, my name is Lila Hensel. I'm in 7th grade, and No Place for Hate is important to me because I'd like to diminish bullying in our community, in our country.
Hi, my name is Megan Morley. I am also in 7th grade, and No Place for Hate is important to me because I want the world to become a more inclusive and kind place.
No Place for Hate is something that we've done at our school and helps everybody stay kind, and we have planned some activities at our school to help people stay kind.
One campaign that we have done at BHMS this year is we had our students make snowflakes this winter, and not only did this encourage kindness and inclusivity when people saw the snowflakes on the walls, it also encouraged inclusivity while making the snowflakes, as it mixed different friend groups, ethnicities, religions, and other diverse aspects while making the snowflakes.
Smiling is easier than frowning, so be kind and help out because a simple smile may touch someone's heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. Okay, so here are our goals for No Place for Hate Day. Around our school, we have done numerous events that include anti-hate messages. Our theme that we have been following for this day and all of our activities is anti-bullying, kindness, acceptance, positivity, and diversity. We have done presentations to the entire school before that a lot of us here have presented, and it is a great way to teach everybody about what we believe and what we think should happen at our school. So yeah, next slide, please. Some goals are to create a community event that focuses on spreading awareness of the effects of bullying, along with spreading positivity through unique and fun activities throughout all of Broomfield. we want to normalize the discussion of all of these topics because, like I said before, sometimes things that should be talked about aren't. And it's easier to make everybody feel welcome when they understand what's going on. Next slide, please.
We contacted all of the libraries in Broomfield and asked them to support our efforts by creating a No Place for Hate display in their libraries. Next slide, please. Broomfield Heights Middle School, along with the Broomfield Library and the Broomfield High School, made displays with books, while Cole Elementary made a wall with 100 ways to be kind.
Next slide, please. Let's get real. According to the Monique Burr Foundation, 13 million students are bullied in the US each year. That's 1 in 4 students who have experienced bullying this year alone. If nothing is done, these rates will continue to rise. It's time to put an end to something that causes pain to our family, friends, peers, and ourselves. Next slide, please. Here's how you can help create a change. If you'd like to create a difference, here's some examples on how you can help. If you see something, say something. Bullying will continue if nobody's willing to speak up. However, if you are, it can save a life. Support your community members who are still experiencing bullying. It can be hard to go through and reach out for help, so always be a light for someone else. Find organizations like No Place for Hate that are willing to eradicate bullying. We can't do it without the help of you to keep these organizations alive. Be the voice of people who aren't ready to speak up about their experiences. Just like reaching out for help is hard, talking about it is even harder. So if you can help be the voice for millions of people who endure bullying each year, you can help them eventually feel comfortable with what happened to themselves. Finally, you can join No Place for Hate efforts that are happening within our community right now. For example, all of you are supporting us just tonight by listening to our speech, helping us receive our proclamation, and continuing to allow No Place for Hate to flourish in the United States of America, Colorado, and the County of Broomfield.
Next slide, please. Okay. So we're wondering if you guys have any questions about what we want to say.
Well, first of all, I want to give you a standing ovation.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you all so much. Just the outreach in the community in response to, you know, what we all hear. We know this is going on, and for you guys to put in the work to help create a kinder, more tolerant community it just fills our hearts. So thank you for doing the hard work in the classrooms, in the schools, because we know it's happening. So bringing it to light is the first way to create change. And those ripple effects, they turn into waves, and it will make a difference. I'm just so touched by all of you being here and being committed to creating a safe space in our classrooms where everybody has a right to feel safe. So thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf is behind you, and he's going to present the proclamation, and I'll summarize it for you. And then I'll turn it over to anybody else who wants to make comments. The City and County of Broomfield proclaims April 17th, 2025 as No Place for Hate Day to recognize the importance of anti-bias education and celebrate the efforts of the No Place for Hate coalitions at Broomfield Heights Middle School and Emerald Elementary. This day highlights Broomfield's commitment to diversity, acceptance, and the prevention of bullying, aiming to build a more equitable and just community. The coalitions encourage individuals and groups to engage in regular acts of kindness and organizations throughout Broomfield. Support these efforts by participating in anti-bias education and activities. Therefore, I hereby declare and proclaim April 17th, 2025 as No Place for Hate Day in Broomfield. And I just want to thank you all again. Would you like to say anything else?
Happy birthday.
Oh. Oh, you do. Thank you. This was the best birthday present anybody could have given me. So thank you all for being here. We do allow comments and questions. So, and then we'll take a group photo if you guys are okay with that. So first I'll open it up for anybody in the public or in our community. Would they like to add anything? Come on up if you would like to, no pressure. All right, I'll go to, there's someone, where? Come on up, it's open mic.
If you didn't know what FIRE means, it means focus, integrity, respect, and empathy.
Thank you for that. That's a new.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well then we'll go to, oh, come on up.
I just want to say to Broomfield that thank you for letting No Place for Hate be speak here and have the chance to have a day to recognize anti-bullying. So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Also, happy birthday.
This is the best. It couldn't have happened on a better day. Anyone else? Come on up, sir. We have one person in front of you.
I heard that at BHMS there's a No Place for Hate club. I heard that because my brother is in high school there.
You're right, there is one.
Mhm.
They're sitting right there. Those are some of them. We got these shirts a couple of years ago when they did their first one. So I reached out to the school and said, I think we need to do it again. So I am just so grateful that we were able to keep this going.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So one of my questions, it's not really a question, it's a goal. My goal is that we stop bullying from all around the world and for bullying to stop happening, because once bullying happens, your heart can never go back the same way it was.
Wise words. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that thank you for No Place for Hate for being really kind to us. And
Thank
happy
you.
birthday.
Thank you.
I hear a lot of people saying that that they want to stop bullying in our schools and with young people, but I want to point out that it's not just happening with kids. It's happening with adults too and teenagers. No matter what age you are, you can still be bullied or see bullying or be the bully. So I want to talk especially to the adults that you can also make a difference with the adults, not just with the kids in your lives.
Excellent point.
I don't think I need the stool. My name is Jerry. I am with the Anti-Defamation League, which is the organization that sponsors No Place for Hate. I cannot tell you how gratifying it is to see the city council do what they're doing today. This does not happen in many cities. So thank you so much. Happy birthday. And I also want to share how much work these students have put in. They volunteer their time. The adult coordinators volunteer their time, and it takes a lot of effort. And everything you saw today is student generated. We don't come in with a curriculum and say, you need to do this. They know what's going on, and they really know how to fix it, and we help them get the skills and the resources to do it. And it is amazingly how proud I am. Right now, we're in 11 BVSD schools. We'd like to be in more. We'd like to be in more Broomfield schools. So we'll see how that goes. But thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And I think this is a great way for our public and our community to know that these programs exist and can reach out to their respective schools to inquire about getting involved too. Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard? Come on up.
I also want to say thank you because, like he said, not all schools get to do this, and hopefully, with a little bit of kindness, it will spread, and more people will be kind, and we'll have a kind community to be with.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll go to my council colleagues. Any of my council colleagues have any comments or questions for Councilmember Henkel?
Thank you, Mayor. Also, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. You guys are just such a breath of fresh air, and I just really appreciate the positivity and the work that you put in. Holy slideshow, that was amazing. And just, the effort that you guys are using to collaborate with each other as well. You're coming in really organized, and I'm loving it. It seems like it's just really building, and from there, and I can just see it build in Broomfield. Speaking from experience in resettling refugees in the area, we've seen what's happened in other states recently. Kids getting attacked just for wearing a hijab. And I know that we've resettled some kids actually at elementaries in Broomfield, particularly Miss Williams has done a great job at really assisting our families. Being in a meeting with her and having an interpreter there has been wonderful. And I have a child who's also neurodivergent and is often misunderstood. And so I think the more that you're slow to speak and quick to listen is also important. And so we all can listen in this room and take that message in every day. And we just really appreciate your loving hearts. And BVSD, I've just been really impressed with as well. And just the acceptance and love in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. It's great to see you all. I've seen some of you recently in the school, so it's good to see you all. Thank you for coming to council tonight. Your efforts do make a difference. I've seen it from my own eyes within the schools, and I also see it, that ripple effect that you all have an impact within the rest of the community. So thank you for your wise words tonight, and thank you for making Broomfield proud. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, I say let's take a big group picture in the front. God, you did it. You did it. You made it happen. You made it. Thank you. Thank you, guys. We'll give our guests a few minutes to relocate. I'm glad they partnered with Emerald. I didn't know they were. Happy birthday for sure. I had no idea we were going to have that big of a crowd. Did you? Oh, I was out of town. But wow. Yay. All right, everyone. Thank you for enjoying that with all of us. We're going to move on to our study session agenda item, which is the first quarterly enterprise update. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, and I'll ask our staff to begin the discussion.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, community and council. Ken Rutt has made his way down to the podium, which he should just stand up on those 2 feet there. Graham Clark, our finance director, they're going to be going back and forth actually during this presentation. Staff has been working diligently to provide these quarterly updates. We'll get better and better as we move through what is pertinent information, how to share it, what it looks like, what the intent is, and how it feeds to the next quarterly update as we move through, so that there are no surprises when we come to budget time. I'm grateful for this team and all the work that they put into it. We're going to start with Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Manager Hoffman, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. My name is Graham Clark, Director of Finance. Tonight we'll be talking about the unaudited 2024 financial results, the 2025 fund updates, water system planning and project updates, along with the next steps and direction requested from council. Next slide. As a review, we will be providing detail on the enterprise funds on a quarterly basis. From a finance perspective, we will be discussing where we were a couple of years ago, recent financial results, and planning decisions that are underway as part of the rate planning and CIP development process. Lastly, we will discuss future direction as we continue to focus on a well-planned out financial management plan. In 2021, we initiated a rate study. Keep in mind that any rate study done years ago was a snapshot in time. You might also remember that in 2023, we had the twofold issue where we experienced a historically wet year and low consumption, as well as the rise of interest rates, which affected the amount of development revenue that we received. Next slide. In 2024, Broomfield included a more balanced approach of less reliance on development fees and water consumption, and focused on rate stability through base fees. As water use becomes more restricted across the American West, water scarcity continues to be a problem. We will see more and more municipalities use this approach. In 2024, we also brought on AECOM to do a comprehensive review of our asset inventory system, which is valued at over $3 billion. Staff is focused on the future of the enterprise funds. We did plenty of looking back over the last year, and as we move forward, we'll be discussing future projects and future actions. Next slide. In 2024, we also decided that it would be good to do these quarterly updates to council. Key components of each quarterly meeting will include the following: project and CIP status, financial updates, clear upcoming timelines, along with reporting on any shifts in projected outcomes. Next slide. The 2025 rate changes for water and sewer and the development of the stormwater fund was important. But remember, this is a 5-year plan with outcomes each year. We will touch on future rate increases later in this presentation. Next slide. I'd like to thank our utility billing staff who's listening online and the GIS mapping team with the great work in being able to stand up a stormwater fund and the appropriate charges, especially on the commercial side, where customers are charged by impervious square footage. This was a significant lift in which they only had a couple of months to put this together. Happy to report the stormwater fund is fully implemented at this time. And Broomfield's previous practice of not having their own stormwater fund was not best practice. And moving forward, the enterprise's funds are in an increasing sense of stability in all the funds because of the stormwater fund. Next slide. So that was a quick overview of the last couple of years. Next, we'll provide some 2024 financial results. Total projected water fund balance increased by about $600,000. In 2024, finance and utilities were focused on cost savings throughout the year, and this resulted in operating expenses coming in $1.1 million under budget. This is overall good news, but the variance must be evaluated in conjunction with other factors that impact the financial projections, such as precipitation levels, unexpected repairs, and the startup of the URAF program costs. Next slide. On the sewer fund, we had favorable results by about $1 million. However, as stated with water, this variance must be evaluated with the other factors, which include unexpected repairs and the changing landscapes of the federal and state mandates. Overall, both funds ended 2024 very close to the original projections. Next slide. For an update on the Utility Rate Assistance Fund program, 2,340 people have put in applications. The program is fully operational, and the housing department staff have been extremely helpful to very many residents, more than the 2,340. We've also answered 300 phone calls and responded to 113 emails. And one great thing is that staff has had over 100 one-on-one consultants with residents. The utility billing staff is busy crediting resident bills on a weekly basis. And thus far, the combined cost with personnel is around $600,000. We do anticipate more applications, especially as the summer comes on. So this cost will likely increase to about $900,000 to $1 million. We will provide another update in July at the quarterly meeting on the progress that we've made on the assistance program. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ken to do his portion of the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, Manager Hoffman, Ken Rutt, Director of Public Works. And start out tonight, because we can't let the kids have all the fun. Happy birthday, Mayor. So one of the things that this brought to mind is I was talking with Manager Hoffman today about some stuff was going on, and it reminded me of my trip when I went to Norway. And one of the things we took was Norway in a nutshell. It was a coast to coast tour that we did. And that's kind of what this presentation of Enterprise reminds me. It's a nutshell of what we do in the water utility funds. So here we go. Next slide. So one of the keys for everything that surrounds the water systems and is really the planning of the water resources. And it's a comprehensive process that focuses on directing activities to optimize the use of the available water resources. It ensures our reliability and our sustainability going into the future. It has to remain flexible and adaptable to the changing times, costs, those type of things, environment. It evolves around the changing policies, regulations, prolonged droughts that we went through. It also needs to match the pace of development, which is critical. And then it also has to accommodate the fluctuating construction costs and some environmental factors. So it's all about optimizing our water usage, assessing our water resources, forecasting our demands, and implementing the strategies. Next slide. So part of the demand forecast is there's several uncertainties. And one of the things that Broomfield, I think, has done really well, at least my career has been, is really developing the water resources. And, you can go back through the times in the 1990s when we made the big switch from Great Western Reservoir to northern Colorado and the Colorado Big Thompson water. All of that was part of how we go about water system demand and management. So as we look at, we have to make sure that our methodology is consistent and it applies to standard industrial practices. And since 2020, when Colorado adopted the state water plan, it also has to be consistent with the state of Colorado's water plan. And so it has to be transparent. We incorporate conservative estimates so that we don't build too quickly, but we're not overly conservative, so we're behind. So it's a balance between the two. So right now, forecast water usage for single family based on 2024 data now is a single family, it's 110 gallons per person. Multiple family is at 51 gallons per person. And the business sector is based on square footages and it's averaged at 0.08 gallons per square foot. And so all those factors are incorporated into those demand projections. This allows us to update when there are changes in population, changes in our growth patterns, changes in how we're using our water, and any impacts of the conservation programs. It also allows us to develop a trajectory and what that may look like 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Because one of the important things on water resource development and planning is we're not thinking just about today or next year. Water planning, you have to look 5, 10, 20, 30 years into the future. Because identifying those infrastructure needs is critical, and a lot of those take a long time to develop. For example, water conservation and the impact of water in the year 2000, which is our base year that we started our program, it was 217.2 gallons per day on average community-wide, taking all sectors. In 2024, that has dropped to 129.6 gallons on average. So that's a 40.3% reduction in amount of usage in the last 25 years. And that makes a big difference in how we calculate our infrastructure needs. And then also the changing population, the comprehensive plan. When we were looking at planning in 2005, that comprehensive plan was 83,300 people. So when you plan for that, and then in 2015, that plan changed to 95,500 people. And so it made us adjust our projection and trajectory on that. And then in 2025 now, we're looking at 119,000 for 2050. So again, we're looking at adjustments of our modeling. while at the same time, we need to balance the available funding, as Mr. Graham, our finance director, just spoke to. Next slide. So our planning effort has been consistent. You know, you can go look back through all of the various water plans that we've done over the last 15 years, and it all centers around the four major categories, the four major functions related to our potable water and our future capital expenses. It is our water supply, which is Denver Water, Colorado Big Thompson, or CBT units, and Windy Gap units. The transmission conveyances from both Northern and Conda 81 for Denver Water, and the Southern Water Supply Pipeline for Colorado Big Thompson. It's funny how you get in front of you guys and your mouth dries out. And also water distribution. We now have 447 miles that we have to maintain, 5 booster stations and 4 storage tanks currently. So the timing of construction of these new capital projects is extremely important. We want to avoid restricting water sales, license sales, so we can continue with the capital assets coming in from license fees, and then also possible shortages or reduction in service levels. Next slide. Again, as I said, you know, the 2020, 14, 2016, and 2018 water plans all included these 4 projects, which is we purchased additional CBT units, which we bought 113 units since 2014 to strengthen the amount of water supply that we have in our portfolio. We also identified, and we have in the final phases of converting Sienna Reservoir to provide interim peaking. During summer months, demand doubles, triples, quadruples, kind of depends on how warm it is. Speaking just from Broomfield's treatment system, not counting Denver Water, on average, the winter average production is roughly about 5.5 million gallons a day. In the summer, we peaked at 24 million gallons. That's how much difference there is between summer and winter production. And that's why these peaking storage reservoirs are important. And then the expansion of the water treatment plant was planned in 2 phases. The first phase was completed, and we now have a current capacity of 26 million gallons. And then the Windy Gap firming project, known as Chimney Hollow, was also finalizing this July. They'll start filling it. So as you can see, water planning consists of not only the supply, but the storage, the treatment, and it takes years. For example, the Windy Gap, the firming project, that started in 2000 from Northern Colorado. And going through the permitting process, it took until 2017 to get that permitting process. Next slide, which I jumped ahead in my notes. So Chimney Hollow Reservoir is one of the, wow, that's really changed. Lost my place now. So the Chimney Hollow Reservoir is one of the critical pieces in ensuring our water supply. You have to have storage in order to what they call firming. You have to have a place to put that water. And that Windy Gap water currently does not have a storage vessel. And so in order to be able to sell water licenses and to be able to provide that water, you have to firm that water up. And you have to do that through storage. And that's one of the key pieces of Chimney Hollow is doing for us. It's firming that 5,600 acre feet of water for us. And that construction started in 21. And as I said, it'll start filling in July of 25. So that is moving along quickly. For those who don't know much about it, Carter, if you've seen Carter Lake, that's about 112 acre feet. Chimney Hollow will be 90,000 acre feet, so very similar in size. Also, if those don't, In the audience that may or may not know, the water comes out of Grand Lake underneath the Rocky Mountain National Park and then down to Carter Lake before it gets to here. Next slide. So we talked a little bit about Sienna Reservoir. This will be a peaking reservoir. We'll also be able to bring water in here from the Carter Lake pipeline, and we'll be able to serve beginning in end of May. That project is going to be wrapping up, and it'll start being available for us to begin to utilize that facility. It'll serve as a peaking reservoir, and it's projected to be able to handle our peaking factors until about 2035, roughly. Next slide. The next large project coming is Broomfield Reservoir. The current estimate from the engineer that did the original design, original design was Montgomery Watson. They got bought out by Stantec. We had them update the cost of the dam this last year. And so it's roughly $137 million estimate. It is based on the current projections. It'll be needing to be online by about 2037, as both Glasser, our terminal reservoir at the treatment plant, and Sienna will be maximized by 2038. So we'll start design in about 2030. We're going through some permitting process over the next several years, doing some monitoring of groundwater, and start working through the 404 permit with Corps of Army Engineers and the state of Colorado and so forth. As we get closer, obviously we'll be bringing more information to council over these quarterly updates and so forth. Next slide. So one of the things that we need to make sure that we are also taking care of is our distribution system. And how are we, we all have water meters in our houses and businesses and so forth. And so those water meters have a design life. And the current water meters that we are using have a 12-year design life to it. We are now at those 12 years or exceeding some of those 12 years. So last year, as part of our asset management transition, and part of some of the things we were working on in 23 and late of 22 into 23 and in 24, we developed a 12-year replacement program based on the 12-year meter life. And it'll replace an average about 1,568 meters a year. Or that's how many we're going to replace in 25. On average, it's 1,870 meters over the 12-year period. There's 22,443 meters currently in the city and county of Broomfield. And so we developed a 12-year plan. And if you just want to click real quick where it says schedule, I don't know if that'll come up. You can see the spreadsheet that we have developed. It identifies the size of meter, the quantity in each size, how old they are, what the amount of the estimated cost. And we are using the construction index factor that was just released for the Denver Boulder area in April of 4.1%. And that's what we use for our estimated cost as we go through the years. Next slide. Same thing with the water line replacement. We have the 2025 water line replacement. There's $4.1 million in the budget. We have bid that project, and council awarded that late last year for 1.51 miles of water line replacement within the Westlake community and along 136 between Sheridan and Lowell. We've developed a 36-year replacement program for the water line replacement project to replace 53.3 miles of our water line. When we look at that and you go, that seems like a lot, but we got to remember we got 447 miles. And so prior to 2023, our water line replacement was only being planned out within the current 5-year plan. And since 2023 and before 2023, we also only replaced 0.48 miles on average between 2012 to 2023. which is part of what, when you saw AECom's presentation, why there was a backlog slightly. So now we're the 36-year plan. It's going to average 1.48 miles per year, which will replace all of the ductile pipe that we currently have that is at or will be exceeding its lifespan. And that total cost over the 36 years is almost $292 million, give or take. And that's in the same philosophy was working, you can hit the schedule real quick, working with the same cost factor of the construction costs index of 4.1, the current bids that we actually received for the cost this year, and using that as our base, and then projecting those throughout the next 36 years using a straight line 4.1%. And every year we'll go back through there and revise this chart and identify other areas. Right now, the replacement criteria is based on break history and the age of the pipe. So if there's a piece of pipe that has several breaks in it, then that pipe is scheduled for replacement. So that'll also vary depending on, some pipes may have a increased breakage over the years, and we'll have to move pipes back and forth in the schedule based on some of the breakage and how many people would be affected. Next slide. So the north area potable tanks, that project is coming up. We are working to get that started in the beginning of 2026. And we'll be moving forward with getting the potable water storage tanks up and running. The current available reservoir of storage we have in 2034 will get into our 10% buffer by 2032. We're looking at issuing $60 to $70 million worth of bonds, and we'll talk a little bit more maybe later on in that. Next slide. Reuse water tank, and this is probably one of the big updates. As everybody remembers, the 2024 site development plan included a reuse tank. And as we were going through the budget process and trying to identify the dollars to pay for that, it led us to do some additional reevaluations of various options and how we can supply our reuse and control several of the costs. And through that modeling effort, we were able to identify that we can do some operational changes, and we will be able to not have to build that tank, of a savings of 17.3 million. The operational changes will look in how we operate. We've already met with the parks team and how they operate irrigating their park system and how we can work with them. We've been meeting with some of the HOAs and how we're going to work through some of the operational so we can manage the peak demands within that system in order to meet the demands. Next slide. Great Western Reservoir. For those who are not familiar, Great Western Reservoir was built in 1904, so it's 121 years old. It has, over the years, it's had 3 major structural issues. So there's a failing tow drain, an aging outlet pipe, and we have some lingering structural deficiencies in the embankment. The state engineer has works alongside our consultant engineer. As council may remember, in May of 2024, we brought you forth a engineering contract to work with Snopples Engineering to do an evaluation of the dam and the tow drain and provide us with some options of how to move forward. And they have completed some of the recommendations, and the dam has been classified as conditionally satisfactory by the state engineer, requiring us to address some of these issues by 2030. The 3 potential rehab alternatives that have been identified by our consulting engineer is to do a selective replacement of the tow drain and outlet, do a full dam replacement, based on the two failures of the structural part of the dam that's happened in previous years, and then breach and decommission the dam. That would be the third option. And then they're also doing a radiological contamination sampling to see if there's any potential issues related to the site, and particularly the sediment sampling is underway. If they find anything within the sampling, then we will continue to move forward with Smith Environmental to continue doing evaluation whether the contamination is present within the reservoir. The next steps that we are moving forward with, and now that we have the recommendations, we need to continue doing the next step in the study, which is to do some modeling and some scenario developments with the engineer and say, okay, in option 1, what are the scenarios available to us? Option 2, a full dam replacement, what does that look? What are those scenarios and how do we meet reuse demands operationally? And then option 3 is obviously breach and decommission the dam. And then what is those impacts? What are those environmentally? What are those on our capacities? What is that in our infrastructure? So there's a lot of scenario development in there. It's going to take us about another 12 to 18 months, but we wanted to provide an update of where that is currently. Next slide. The stormwater program, it is moving forward. We will be doing what we do, the same thing that we do with the sewer line, is we're going to be doing a ultraviolet cure-in-place pipeliner to address several of the projects that we have identified over the next 30 years, similar to the water line replacement, the sewer line replacement, stormwater replacement. We went through the same exercises and did the same projections based on what we see, particularly in the stormwater and the sewer lines. We actually go in with a camera and we can actually do a visual inspection inside. And then we use a national standard of how to rate those based on various cracks, failures, those type of things. We're also going to be coming back next week with the first proposal to bring before council for your approval to do the 2025 program. 2025 program will address the issues that we've identified in Miramonte Park, the Broomfield Plaza area, the Northmore area, and the Lacamora area. So we'll be bringing forth a proposal to award a contract to rehab those stormwater lines. Next slide. The sewer lines, the collection system, this year's program is a little over $1 million. It uses the same ultraviolet cure-in-place pipeliner. This year's project is already underway. We are doing some rehab in Midway Park, and this work is beginning to start soon. The 30-year program addresses 58.72 miles, or just under 18% of the system, and that cost is roughly $114 million. The 2025 program will address just under a mile, 0.95 miles. The 2026 program, we have budgeted 3.78 miles, and overall, the 30-year plan will, on average, replace 1.42 miles. We'll rehab 1.42 miles on average. Next slide. The wastewater treatment plant. We are moving forward. We're in about 90% design completion for the phase 1. As the master plan indicated, there's 5 phases identified for the wastewater treatment plant over the next 15 years. The engineer did an update on cost estimate after we completed the 90% design. The cost projection has increased from $524 million to $548 million after 1 year design. The key drivers in the costs are regulations, which is 39%. of that cost. Asset renewal is 20%. The solids treatment part is 18%, capacity 17%, and reuse 6%. And one of the things that we've noticed over the last, since 2017 roughly, is that the solids part is becoming more critical as the increase. There's been about a 30% or 38% increase in the amount of solids coming in, which is really the organic matter, body waste, that comes into the treatment plant. And where's that is because our water reduction, right? We went from 219, now we're down at 129 on average. Pollution, right? So you don't have the water, so the percent of solids then now becomes increased. The solids is the expensive part to treat. The water is the cheap part to treat. So as the solids increase, the cost of treating wastewater increases. Next slide. The asset management pieces, we are, I just wanted to go over real quickly that, historically, we've always done the maintenance management pieces throughout, my career anyway, in 37 years, is that we've always focused on addressing immediate issues. And we've also focused primarily on repair and upkeep. And we've focused on trying to minimize downtime and costs associated with repairs. And a lot of that is used through, whether it's a manufacturer recommendation of the frequency of preventive maintenance, like oil changes, greasing, replacing bearings, all that type of preventative maintenance stuff. And then you have the asset management, which we're really moving quickly through, and we're starting to develop more deeply, is the proactive strategic planning pieces of the asset life. So planning out 36 years of that asset life, or planning out 30 years of that asset life, or 12 years in the meter section. All of that is part of that. And so it encompasses all aspects of the life cycle. We try to maximize the value and minimize our costs, and by trying to make sure that we don't replace things too quickly, but we don't replace things too late. So it's that balance. Next slide. So emergency preparedness. There's two pieces of this. There's what we do for our resilience, what's required under, let me make sure I don't get ahead of myself. Yeah. So what's required under, the Safe Drinking Water Act, and being resilient and evaluating our vulnerable areas and making sure that we are protecting our assets. That's one component of it. The other component of it is, are you ready to react? And that's the preparedness piece. And so as we've developed over the last several years and even years past, is continue to develop our teams to be able to react and address issues. And one of the things I would say that over our careers, Jeff and my careers in the water side, is that Broomfield has always done a great job responding to emergencies, coming together as one. And so we continue to develop that as things have gotten more complicated, more complexity to the systems. How do we respond? So staff has been working together with public health and environmental health, emergency management, North Metro Fire Department, and the Colorado Department of Public Health Drinking Water Training Specialists. And we've set up a couple of different tabletop exercises. One earlier this year was related to water line breaks, and the one coming Friday is related to wildfire emergencies. Next slide. So wildfire preparedness that's been on a lot of people's minds is LA area, and then we had the local Marshall fire. So a lot of people are, what are we doing, right? So some of the lessons learned through both LA and the Marshall fires, UCLA, in the memo, there was a tag in an article from UCLA and what they noticed from those LA fires. And then there was also a link to the Purdue study that was with City of Louisville and Superior that did the Marshall fires. And what are the lessons learned? And what are some of the things that we want to make sure that we are also prepared to do? And one of the things that was really interesting to find was emergency power generation. Because what happens in a fire? What does Xcel do? They shut the power off and they shut the natural gas off. So if you have a natural gas generator, guess what's not going to work? Your backup power. So being able to have that diesel generator, which is what Broomfield does. We have all diesel generators. We also participate in the Colorado Mutual Aid Agreement, COWARN. We also have 2 interconnects. Obviously, we have the one with Denver. We also have one with Westminster to also back and forth if each one of us need additional supply during an emergency. We're conducting the tabletop exercises with the professionals needed around the table. Like I said earlier, emergency management, fire department, the health departments, both local and state. And we're all together going through the exercises. The other thing is policy and procedures, such as making sure that we are topping off the finished water storage tank as anticipation of approaching fires so that we maximize the amount of storage that we have. Broomfield's also fortunate to have 2 large local lakes, reservoirs, whatever you want to call it, in Sienna and Great Western, so that air firefighting activities can take place and draw water from those 2 local bodies. We also maintain 2 different laboratories at 2 different locations. So if a fire requires us to minimize staffing at one location to protect the safety and health of our employees, we can transfer some of the labs to the other location. So we have that redundancy, that duplication. We also have 18 pressure zones? 18 pressure zones, which will allow us also to adjust the distribution system and hopefully reduce the amount of water being lost. Because that's one of the main issues is water being lost because can't shut down, you know, they weren't able to shut down some of the water meters. So as the house burned down, the water just was being wasted. So making sure that we can control that water pressure and what's needed in those areas. And then obviously working with our water distribution experts, our engineers and consultants as we continue to develop additional designs and efforts, such as some of the folks are looking at remote shutoff valves and how does that work, where we can shut off individual houses if they're under fire. For us, we have also the pressure zone safeties, but we're also looking at those remote shutoff valves. And does that make an impact? And then the other thing that we're lucky enough to do is we have a extensive reuse distribution system, and that is working with the state to evaluate the possibility of adding some hydrants on the reuse system, particularly in areas that may be have a higher risk in the Broomfield than other areas. And that's kind of what we're doing on utilities. So I will turn it back to our finance director.
Thanks, Ken. We'll now shift back over to the finance section. Next slide. So over the last few years, actual residential water and sewer permits have come in under budget. These differences are related to timing, and the revenue is usually delayed into the next year. Community development provides regular updates to Public Works and to finance on development projections and timing. This allows for updates to the finance license fee revenue, and it also affects our 5-year CIP. Next slide. Over the next 2 months, staff will be focused on the following components, which are integral to producing a solid budget for 2026. As we do each year at this time, we're in the process of budget development, including the operational budget and the 5-year CIP, in partnership with Public Works and Planning. This is a repeatable process that we've done for 3 years together now, and the coordination between development fee numbers coming in from planning, the project timing and costs, and how that impacts the rate setting cannot be understated. Next slide. As Ken mentioned, and as a review, Broomfield will be issuing 2 enterprise bonds in the next 9 months. We met with our bond counsel last week to begin the process, and the 2025 rate increases and close projections have positioned Broomfield well as we head into this issuance phase. As you're aware, a couple of our bonds were upgraded in the last year. The main factors considered by rating agency for upgrades are maintaining strong reserve levels, which we've done, decrease overall leverage, and maintain a strong days cash on hand. We do plan to have our bond counsel discuss more on bonds at an upcoming council meeting as we get closer to issuance in the fall. Next slide. The 2026 projected rate increases remain consistent with last year's projection. Billed revenue came in close to target in 2024 among water and sewer funds, allowing rates to remain as projected. Final rate recommendations will come forward at the July quarterly update. Next slide. Council member Delgadillo had a question regarding the next 3 slides. It was a good question, and she noted that 2029 had negative fund balances in water and sewer. One of the challenges of doing any update in April and May is that initial numbers have not gone through our annual budget process, which occurs each year at this time. Staff is currently in the midst of developing the 5-year CIP, with 2029 standing out due to significantly higher capital needs in both water and sewer. This large capital demand is what staff will be analyzing along with Public Works and their team to do a comprehensive review over the next 4 to 6 weeks. It is not abnormal to be in this position at this point of the year. After we go through the following 4 steps on the screen, we'll have rate and CIP aligned in the budget with a positive fund balance over the next 5 years. Next slide. Here's our projected 5-year fund balance for water. You can see in 2029, there's a large $40 million CIP. Again, we'll go through the process to come out with this 5-year plan by July. The teams will be looking at all years, including 2029, and evaluate them on an individual basis. This is a process that every other municipality is performing right now in preparation for their own boards and council meetings later this year. Next slide. Similarly, on the sewer side, we'll look at revenues, operational budgets, and project costs and timing in each of the next 5 years. Next slide. We will continue to evaluate the reuse fund. There's a large capital expenditure in 2027, which is proving challenging. Finance and Public Works are exploring options during the CIP development cycle, and we'll have more to council in July on this one as well. Next slide. In review, the financial position of the enterprise funds are improving. The 2024 results came in close to budget, and we're on track with last year's rate recommendation to remain, and we remain committed to transparency. Next slide. In the next quarterly update, we'll be prepared to give the final rate recommendation for 2026 budget, and finance will be in front of council each of the next 6 months with various updates. Ken has a few slides to wrap up the presentation.
One of the things I forgot to mention was we're continuing our work with AECom on the asset management. And part of that is taken a deeper dive into our assets and associated financial estimates that we're looking at and how that all works together. We're also looking at the risk-based factors to make sure that we are consistent with best practices within best management and asset management, which also includes looking at risk components of the prioritization score, a probability of failure versus consequences of failure, and then working to make sure that our asset management body of knowledge is consistent with the ISO 55000 and our international infrastructure maintenance manuals. So we'll be continue working with them, and we hope to have the draft by around the 1st of May so that we can, as we work through with finance, we will have that additional data to continue with that. The next slide here is one of the things that we are very excited about is that is an opportunity for us to partner and engage with our community, the people that we serve. So part of that is this year, we're looking at what we're calling the Public Works and Water Utility Academies. And we're actually hosting them at each site, which will give our community an opportunity not only have a chance to have questions and answers with our staff and our experts, but also to be able to see what is my money paying for and what does that look like. And so the first one is going to be at the water treatment plant, and that will be on a Saturday, May 17th from 9 a.m. to 11:30. We just published right before the meeting started. Our communications team has got the information out on both the web page, and we'll be sending out public communications beginning next week. There will be an application process similar to other utilities within the area. Basically, we just need to know who's coming, and that there's also obviously a release of liability because there are moving pieces of equipment that you will be walking by. And so that'll be all part on the webpage where you can sign up and attend one, attend all, attend pick and choose. We're not requiring everyone to attend each of them. And the idea behind what we're trying to do is we'll have, I hate the word presentation because that implies where it's a one-way communication, but we will have slides, and we are going to encourage folks that attend to ask questions as they go through a short slide presentation and as we go on the tours and walk around the facilities and they explain what is happening, that you ask questions throughout the whole process. And then we can follow up at the end for some additional questions and answers. And so as the schedule here is, we have one for each one of the different public works areas. The first, and we also tried to schedule around Mother's Day, graduations for Broomfield High, Legacy, Holy Family, and all of those. So we took all of those. So maybe that's why you see some difference in, okay, there's a whole bunch here, but not so much here. Well, May is full of graduations and everything else. So May 17th is the first one, May 31st. And we also scheduled around Memorial Day, which is the week before. And that will be at the Broomfield Shops. That'll be really cool because you'll get to see a demonstration of how we fix a water line. And actually see what one looks in a hole. That's obviously, that's a set, right? Hollywood set. And show you how deep they are and what that looks like. And then in the parking lot, they'll actually demonstrate how they fix a water line. And then they'll also show some sewer equipment and what's that like and what they use to look inside the sewer lines and what's that activity look like. And then we have June 7th at the wastewater treatment facility. Same type of thing. Now, be prepared to walk if you're at the wastewater facility. It is 13 acres. So there's 29 buildings. So it's a little more walking. But that's will be on June 7th. And then we have a stormwater one on June 11th in the afternoon on a Wednesday evening. Because as we get into June, we thought we could do a couple of Wednesday evenings to help out with the scheduling. So that schedule is online. We'll be sending out communications and looking forward to engaging with our community, because I think that's it's so important to me personally, and so important to our team that we share our passion. We share what we do. We share our expertise, and we learn from you of how to tell our story better. So we both understand each other Next slide. The other thing that we're proposing from staff is the proposal of an enterprise advisory committee. Staff is recommending the city council consider implementation of an enterprise-focused resident advisory committee. The role of the committee would be to provide council and staff insights and recommendations as members engage with and better understand our budgeting process as it relates to enterprise funds, and also enhance the transparency and strengthen our financial oversight of the enterprise funds and related capital projects through community engagement. We're recommending that it would consist of 5 members from the community, 2 alternates, following the standard advisory committee terms of 4 years with regular members and 2 years for the alternates. And I think this is going to be great. Again, it's another one of those opportunities to engage with the public as we go through various changes, and as life happens and budgets get tighter and revenues get tighter. How do we meet, and how do we get communication and understanding of where we need to try to meet and understand each other? And I think the advisory committee is one of those things, one of those tools, along with our tours and some of these other things, that is so important. And I truly believe this is an outstanding recommendation for council to consider. Next slide. Okay, questions for city council? Number 1, does council direct staff to proceed with forming an enterprise advisory committee to be comprised of residents appointed by city council? If so. 2, does council direct staff to proceed with the recommendations in this report? 5 members, 2 alternates, following standard advisory committee terms of 4 years for regular members and 2 years for alternates. 3, does council direct staff to review options for a third-party facilitator for the community, for the committee? If so, staff will bring back a contract for council's consideration. And then 4, does council support the following purpose of the committee, which is to provide suggestions, recommendations related to utility enterprise and utility fees, capital improvement project planning, and financial planning. And I believe that is the end of our slides and presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rutt and Mr. Clark. We will go to council questions and comments next. Who would like to start us off? Councilmember Henkel.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that this conversation is going to keep going. So I'm very thankful for all the work that you all have put in. Thank you all for being here tonight. I see what seems like our entire finance team here, all on your computers. You know you have the finance team when you have their laptops in front of you. So that's very important. And I really want to appreciate anyone who you said who's online and listening on staff. We appreciate the work behind the scenes too. And we know you're not always the outwardly facing part of the group, and that's okay too. I've been applauding and nurturing this idea of an oversight committee, and I'm so excited that it's going to come into fruition. I also appreciate Manager Hoffman and Ken and Graham, sorry, for my notes corrected. And other staff for setting up the Public Works and Water Utilities Academy. That's very forward facing and integrated into the people having access, and then also providing a structure for it. I do have one question and then direction after that. My main question just for tonight, I know you had mentioned the large percentage of unfunded mandates essentially that we have for regulations. And I'm wondering if they will always be that high, or if it's a heavy lift at first and then it tapers off, or do we have any prediction for that?
The most current unfunded mandates center around what's already in process of the ordinance, or in the state code or regulations for the Water Quality Commission, which center around nutrients, which is total inorganic nitrogen, or total nitrogen, as that it will transfer into total nitrogen, and then also phosphorus. Those are the 2 that are the most current and most pressing, because we already have a data limit for those. So those are the 2 most current ones that are being ratcheted down over the next 5 to 7 years. And then the future one moving out there farther is temperature, which is currently part of the regulation, and they're deciding, what is that number going to look like? Which is really interesting because temperature, wastewater treatment plants do not affect temperature. What comes in pretty much is what the temperature goes out. So we do not impact temperature. Short story, the basis of that law was because power plants affect temperature, and they were successful in getting into all utilities. So not just power plants. So it wrapped up into wastewater plants also. So it's not so much the summer season, and that's why this regulation is so expensive. It's the summer season we don't have an issue with. We meet those limits. It is what they call the shoulder months, which is the 2 months of late fall, early winter, and late winter, early spring. Those are the shoulder months that the wastewater temperature from our homes is much warmer than the stream. And that's why we have to reduce the temperature during those times. And that's going to be the expensive piece, probably in phase 4 and phase 5.
Very much. When you're talking about nitrogen and phosphorus, it kind of brings me back to the aquaponics systems where the plants really kind of clean up. Like let's say you have a fish in a barrel and then you use the plant system to kind of clean that up. I wish we could make it that simple. Thank you. So although our numbers don't look quite ready yet, which is, it is what it is. I don't know if we need to rush a 15% increase unless we know it's enough. In order to support the numbers, I believe that we should concentrate on getting the Enterprise Advisory Committee in place sooner rather than later. The diving into the numbers without the spreadsheets, the reports, and the assumptions isn't as efficient. So I look forward to seeing those numbers in the future, which Graham, your email back was good. And I read that email as well. I more than appreciate the residents who have also helped shape the conversation. These residents should be considered at the same time as the other applicants so that there's an even keeled playing ground as far as the applications go. We just need to know if that 15% increase includes sensitivities, outliers, anything that we aren't thinking of in addition to upcoming housing projects and populations. So we want to make sure we understand those numbers. So yes, I support the Enterprise Advisory Committee and moving quickly with this group as we form our numbers for their endeavors. And I would also like a third-party facilitator to help us decide that composition. So I wanted to thank staff for the 5 members and the 2 alternates. If we need to get that going quickly, that's fine. But I also would love a third party to also look at that and say, hey, if we need any more, we should. I know that we need to suggest a charge for the committee and what backgrounds you want. For instance, on our CSBG board, we have someone who's like experienced homelessness. We have an elected official on the board. We have all these different roles. And so I wanted to make sure that we have someone, we start off with someone maybe from engineering and finance and figure out what those roles are, but we are not, I know I'm not equipped to say what those roles would be, but I think it's important to have those roles represented. And then I know that there's 2 alternates to make sure that those 2 alternates probably fit those key ones that we really need, probably finance and engineering, so that we fill those roles. And I would like to require, if possible, those alternates to actually attend the meetings and maybe not vote, but keep attending those meetings so they aren't caught flat-footed if they need to be called up randomly for somebody else. So that's my suggestions for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I have a couple of fairly random questions from listening to your presentation, which is probably more for Graham, but starting at the end, I was somewhat, I guess, not frustrated, but wishing that the academy and the appointment of the committee was in reverse chronological order, because that seems like excellent training to serve on that committee. And you'll probably have to repeat it again. So I don't know if there's any way of maybe requiring anybody who wants to apply for that committee or encouraging them to attend these academies first so they're well versed. To follow up on Councilmember Henkel, we are no shortage of people who volunteer for our committees. And I don't see a reason of capping it at 5. I think we could go to 9 like some of those other communities and get as much diversity and of opinion and viewpoint and experience as possible. I don't see a need for alternates. They're not really voting necessarily. In that sense, I'd rather just have their expertise at the table. That I would do 5 members at 4 years and 4 members at 2 years. And so they cycle through and we keep some institutional knowledge going for the committee going forward. Support the facilitator. And then yes, on number 4. On the couple of random questions, I apologize, but I was listening to your presentation. I wanted to just ask some clarification. You mentioned early on the presentation meters, that you'll be replacing meters and going to my understanding, typically when that happens, you often see a potentially substantial decrease in consumption rates. And is that something you've worked into the figures, that because the meters are more accurate, people tend to react to that? You don't necessarily see your rates going up. They may not be as accurate now, but they tend to get more accurate and people can react to them and they reduce their consumption. Is that part of your projection?
I'll answer the first part of that. Generally, meters that have extended life of 12 to 15 years, they actually lose quite a bit of accuracy, and therefore we're losing revenue. This will actually probably be a net zero, where if they have that behavior, it'll also coincide with more accurate meter reading, which is generally more revenue.
So you expect we'll see an offset?
That's correct.
Okay. Some people may see rates go up, though, presumably, just from the meter changing or their bills going up.
Just to follow up, I quick counsel with my helper is our water resource manager, superintendent, Mark Laurie. Based on last year, our water loss is less than 5% based on production versus what we get in the meter readings, which is equal to or a little bit better than industrial standard. So there may be some, but we don't think it's going to be from our side, I think water resource side. It'll be a huge number.
Okay. I was just seeing a study that said sometimes it's up to 24% reduction. So that would affect our revenue. Also, though, in counterwise, we're projected to have a really hot summer, which means people will be using more water and their bills will go even higher. So something to look forward to. On that same, just a sideline to that question, you mentioned, I just noticed in one of your chart in your presentation that multifamily apartments and single family homes are almost at 50-50 in this community. And more multifamily is projected. Obviously, usage is less in multifamily. So do we anticipate that as we get more and more multifamily and that becomes the majority of housing in Broomfield, that we'll see a demand going down? And is that accounted for, if that's an accurate projection?
Slide 12. Slide 12, please. So on slide 12, this is using all of our current data related to what we're expecting for development. So this is based on numbers that we received a couple of weeks ago. Working with our partners in community development and our economists, looking really closely at what we're projecting from a water usage standpoint. And that's kind of what this chart starts to show. There is a slight drop in total demand from earlier forecasts, but we're still projecting 17,263 acre feet. I think the other projection was like 18,000. So it's a slight decrease.
Okay, thank you. And last, I wanted to clarify what I heard regarding the assistance fund. I think you said there'd be a doubling. Did I mishear you on what would be required if it stayed at the same reduction, same assistance level in the year ahead? You mentioned $1 million figure where it's 586,000 now.
That's just a projection for the end of through the end of the year. So we've only gone through May so far. And so folks still have an opportunity and hopefully will apply. And so we're projecting by the end of the year, it might be around 900 to $1 million.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misheard then. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's all for now.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Marshall-Olson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. This is great information and detailed analysis. Really appreciate it and all the hard work that went into it. Echoing what my colleagues have said so far, kind of going to the bottom of it. If you go back to the question slide, and then I do have a few questions myself. I applaud and think that the more community engagement, the better. I think the water, the classes that we're doing is amazing for the community. And I do think the advisory committee also is something that is desperately needed. Community engagement is essential to what we do, both you all as staff and us as council, in helping the community to see what is needed and also to hearing their feedback. I do think we should go forward with the committee. I agree with Councilmember Cohen that I don't think it necessarily needs to be limited to 5. I would like to see as diverse of opinions and life experience as possible. I do think that we should have some people who are more knowledgeable on different things and experts, but I also want to see individuals and community members who represent the consumer side of things, and how, maybe, I don't know if we can do it or not, but maybe focus on individuals who maybe use the assistance fund, so because those are the people that the rate increases directly impact the most. So that's kind of my thinking on that. I do think the facilitator is a good idea. And yeah, as far as the criteria of what we're going to do with it, I think that's definitely something we should look at. I do have some questions on the presentation and the memo. One general question that I had, the numbers that are in the memo, the X dollars over 36 years, are those in current dollar amounts, or do those take into account the 4.1% multiplier over the entire length of the period?
They do take in the 4.1 each year. So it builds on top of each other.
Okay. And then some specific questions on some things. On page 3 of the memo, it's talking about the reservoir. It's the chart. The reservoir, is that amount, the 137 million, is that currently in our projected expenditures? Is it based into the current rates, or is that something that would be needed to add later?
We do currently have it in the planning forecast, the 137 million in there. I think it's in we're going to move it to 2030, roughly 32. So it'll be starting in 2032.
Okay, thank you. Is that, I'm assuming we probably would bond that, right, rather than cash funding? Do we know that yet?
Yeah, we do not know the answer to that yet. As that gets closer, we'll certainly evaluate that more.
Right. Thank you. A question on the meters. Have we explored I don't even know if the technology is there, but have we explored the idea of time of use billing? Is that something that we can do with the new meters, similar to what Excel is doing, as maybe a way to incentivize watering it at night type of thing? Is that something that
To our knowledge, yet there's not that technology in water meters. The new water meters that we are using has ultrasonic technology, so more accurate, and a longer lifespan too. It's a 20-year lifespan instead of 12.
Okay, thank you. Actual questions I had written down. Also on the future phases of the wastewater treatment, are those future phases currently built into our projections, or will those be additional in the future?
Yeah, we've included those in our capital investment planning.
Thank you. And then on the pond management program, I remember the discussion last year that we didn't really know yet what those were going to cost. Have we figured that out yet? Is that built into the projections, or is that something that we'll be hearing in the future?
Yes, that was built into the. It's built in at $950 a year.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. And one general question on pages 31 and 32, the expenditures, revenues by year. The CIP budgets on those years, do those include the big projects that are bonded in the CIP totals?
No, they do not. And that's because we get the bond proceeds and it offsets the expenditures. So neither one of them are showing.
That was my next question, whether or not the revenues were shown. So I appreciate that. Thank you. And then lastly, I just had one shout out. I wanted to voice my appreciation on the hard work you all did on the reuse tank, being able to figure out how to do that, not having to build the tank and save us $17 million and the revenue, the impact to the residents. So I appreciate that and great job on that. So I think that was it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, staff, for this wonderful presentation. I'm going to start off with just a couple quick questions. The first one relates to the Great Western Reservoir. You noted in the presentation that it's one of our primary storage for reuse water, particularly for like Interlochen and other areas kind of on that side of 36. With some of the structural issues that we're going to have to deal with in the next coming years, is the reuse fund rate going to be sufficient enough to cover those expenses, or are we going to be seeing in the next couple of years as planning gets underway for the replacement of the tow drain and outlet, the replacement of the dam, then breach and decommission of that dam, see increases in that reuse water rate to cover those costs? If we have that answer yet.
The short answer is yes, there will be additional. We are constrained by some contracts that were put in place 20 to 25 years ago with the Interlochen group, and in terms of how much we can charge. But the reuse, there will be some challenges in that fund for sure. And there will be some decisions that will be needed to be made in the future on that. But the short answer is yes, rates will certainly be impacted as these big repairs come in.
Okay, before I get more into that contract question, can you just kind of remind the community who the big users of reuse are? Or anything that I miss. Interlochen is one of them. The city and county of Broomfield is probably the largest user of the reuse system. And then Anthem, I think, has some reuse. And then is there any other big entities that reuse or use that reuse system?
There's two major Anthems.
Okay.
Highlands and Anthem Ranch. And then you also have, we newly installed last year, which is Red Leaf. Red Leaf is now on the reuse system. And then, yeah, City Parks, Interlochen, those are the two major ones.
Okay.
And Greenway Park, I forgot Greenway Park is also on that one.
Thank you. Graham, can you elaborate a little more on some of those contract issues that we have with Interlochen as to like, what are the terms, what's the length of that contract, et cetera?
From my memory, and then may have to have our legal attorney. Is Carl still here? Carl is here. He is the expert on this. But basically, the agreement with Interlochen was formed in mid-1990s, roughly, in which they provided funding up front to assist with, just like developers, they assisted with the funding up front to develop some of the reuse system. In exchange, there was a certain allocation that they are provided under this contract for the forever and ever, pretty much. So there is no sunset date in that contract.
Yay, the ghosts of former decisions coming back to haunt us. That answers my question as it relates to Great Western Reservoir. My next question goes towards the user rate fund that we established. You noted that there were 2,340 residents who have applied for assistance of the roughly 12,500 that are eligible at the AMI we established. Can you give me, do you have a breakdown of the types of residential units who are using it most? Is it predominantly single family? Is it predominantly multifamily? And then what was the outreach and or continued outreach that staff is doing to let the community know that this user rate fund exists?
Thanks for that question. We do not have a breakdown at this time. I'm sure that we could pull that from the housing division, but that might take a couple days. I'm sure they have that breakdown. What was the second part of your question?
The second part of the question was, what are or does staff continue to do in terms of outreach for people to be aware that this user fund exists?
So there's probably some that I'm not thinking of, but we are putting them on the bills. So there's a notification on each of the bills that go out, both email and hard copy bills. And then we also have it on our website, front and center. And I'm sure there's a few other items that I'm not thinking of, but our communications department has taken that one and run with it. And we have certainly a couple other, maybe Manager Hoffman knows a few more.
We've done pop-up shops at the senior lunches at the Lakeshore Room. We've done pop-up shops at Fish. Any one of the community events that we have been at, we have almost a traveling team for those pop-up shops. When they do get requests, they'll go out particularly for the seniors. We've had great response. We continue to have the workshops. We really combine it, Councilmember Ward, between the water service and the property tax, so that we're able to really capitalize on the aging and wellness fairs that we have. In addition to the bills, I can say the largest number, particularly of seniors that we get, is because of the water bills, the inserts in the water bills.
Okay. The reason I asked that is I had mentioned last year that, there are a number of people, particularly in Ward 2, who live in apartments. And since we don't receive water bills directly, it's charged as part of our rent. We're not given that information. And quite frankly, as a renter before I got on council, I really didn't know where the water came from. I just knew it came on and it came off and the toilet flushed. That's all I needed to know. I did not care where it came from. And so I'd like to see more outreach direct to the property management companies for those
It's a good idea.
apartments, just so that way they can send an email blast and let people know. I'll say for myself, I know I qualify at the 100% AMI. I don't use the rate fund because I think it looks improper for me to be using it. But I know there are plenty more people who are within my demographic and socioeconomic status that
Sure.
probably are not utilizing it because they don't know about it.
We'll circle back with Julie and add that to the kind of the comprehensive list to see if we have any other gaps.
Great, thank you. And then my next question is going to go to this, or questions, however many I can think of. We'll go towards the this new advisory committee. I don't have an issue with more eyes looking at what we do and kind of the finances and what the plans are. But my question, I guess, really is, since these committees are meeting every 2 months, and we get a presentation roughly every quarter, is the intent of this committee really more in depth than council is going to go, or can you just elaborate a little more on that?
Mr. Rudd, I'm going to start. The idea for the advisory council really came, we've been working with a core group and I think it's in the memo. We didn't include it in the presentation, but there's been a core group that organically have gone through this journey. There's 4 folks that have really not directed, but certainly influenced the deeper dives in very specific areas. And they really informed and helped us influence what those workshops look like and to determine what that academy looked like. So those, and one, as a matter of fact, we've had follow-up with them to provide continuity. Our recommendation would be if they are willing, which they've indicated that they are, that they continue on this path. I think it's a deeper dive than the quarterly updates, Councilmember Ward, from the perspective, from the resident perspective. So I don't remember what Councilmember noted, but when we have users, we have a senior that actually is utilizing. They helped influence what that rate, not the amount of the rate, but we should be offering that. They helped influence where our outreach and engagement is. So again, the deeper dive from engineering, we have a Denver Water. They were our most vocal, ardent voices when we started this in July, and they have really tracked over the last 10 months to get us where we are. So I think part of just being together, this group, they will do a deeper dive than we're able to do with council, just because it's a mashup of a conversation. It's less of a presentation of a Q&A, and it's more moving through organically together. I can tell you those folks that have been really actively involved with Mr. Rutt and understanding the financial piece, it takes a while to do that deeper dive. It's a focus that you have to have. So you all will be privy to staff, to the finances, as well as those members that are on that committee. And the reason that we said 5, again, from staff's view, it's hard to navigate 9 individuals and to have those conversations and thinking there was going to be an outcome. So really the order between the academies, we had to start those academies. And then really it's after we did the academies was the invent of really keeping that core group together to help us navigate through. So it's a very organic movement, particularly with that advisory committee. So it was selfish on staff's part to be able to say, if we really want to move and navigate and have influence in 2025, primarily in 2026, we have to have a group that is small enough to be agile, but large enough to add enough opinions in specialty areas.
To answer your question about how involved we'll get with them, I would guess our vision for it would be to get more in depth with the capital, particularly the capital planning pieces, because those are the big dollar pieces. So we'd be looking at getting into a little bit more detail with those, because time constraints makes it difficult to get into real deep dives sometimes. But being able to do that with the committee would be helpful.
Okay. I just want to know I have 13 seconds left with my time, so I don't know if you want me to continue because I have more questions, or I'll just reserve for.
You want to do second round?
I'll reserve for second round. I have more to say, but thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Lim.
I guess I'll start with my questions about these questions. If we form this advisory committee, will there be an ordinance or anything to set this up? And will that come forward to us for a vote?
It's by resolution.
By resolution, okay.
Correct. We hope to have that, Councilmember Lim, if you all indicate to move forward with it at the July meeting.
I think it's unfortunate that this committee can't be formed more quickly, that they won't have any input onto I understand with the timetable that you have set up that they won't have any input until the 27 budget. That's kind of unfortunate. Is there anything way we can get around that and have things set up further? Earlier, I think Councilmember Hinkle talked about that too.
Yes, and so we're in the midst right now. We're 3 months in on setting the 2026 budget. So when we say 2027, it's not that there's going to be a year-long period. The preference, particularly on this, so the overall budget is what we're just now starting. From the enterprise perspective, the influence and understanding as we come into July and August, that's a really quick clip in order to have significant financial impact. Which again is one of the reasons that we would strongly recommend continuing to work with this group that we have worked with, so that they can stay consistently involved. We would like as much influence and impact from that advisory committee as we can get, Councilmember Lim.
Okay. Will these advisory board meetings be open to the public? And will the documents that they receive to review be available to the public?
Absolutely.
Good. Okay. Will this board, okay, so this board will not report back to council though. Is that the picture I'm getting? I'm trying to figure that out.
I think the board should report back to council. I think at the, when we have the quarterly updates, I wouldn't anticipate the board being able to be prepared other than how's it going? What does it look like? Is it clunky? When we do the July update, but certainly the update after our next one, you will be able to start gleaning that they're gelling and coming together and what those discussions are. And like anything else, we'll be able to have a repeatable process about what they report back on so that it's organized and consistent.
Okay. And then the resolution to set up this advisory committee will contain that they're going to report back to council in some way or something like that.
Certainly.
Okay. Let's see. And then I have other questions, but I'll answer these questions now. Yes. Number one, yes. Number two, I would actually prefer a larger number of members if that's feasible, because we have an assumption here. I think that I'm hearing that these 4 members are moving forward. And I would like to think that we can add some other interested residents. 3 yes, 4 yes. And then I have other questions. Okay, so if you said you're continuing to work with AECOM and they'll look at the risk-based factors. So is it possible, does AECOM in your consultation with them about how you're going to recommend to set the rates in July, does AECOM look at risk factors and give you a best case scenario, set them at this amount, worst case scenario, set them at this amount kind of thing? And is it possible for council then to see that variance in rates set by risk level? Or is that something that you think needs to only occur in the background and then you just come forward with one recommendation for rates? I hope that made sense.
Great question, Councilmember Lim. Yes, you'll be able to, you're going to see the documents that we go through. So they'll be looking at the risk, and a lot of that risk is based on, how many failures, how many people they serve, how many taps are in there, and what is the effect if there's an outage. So that's one of the risks they look at. And so we'll be looking at with them is, what does that look like? And what risk are we willing to take, right? Are we going to be ultra conservative and it's going to be here? Or are we going to just be conservative and that rate will be here? Or basically, it's not necessarily the rate, because we'll have to calculate the rate. What they'll give us is a dollar number. So they'll say, okay, you need to do, instead of 1.48 miles, you need to do 2 miles if you're going to do at this risk level. You can be at 1.5 if you want to do this risk level, or you may be at 1 if you want to do at this risk level. So I think that's kind of what we're looking at. And then we would be able to work with the finance team and say, okay, what does those rates look like? And what's that impact? Because that'll impact the number of miles, and the number of miles impacts the budget request and so forth.
Okay, thank you. On page 3 in the memo, it was the table of how the construction amounts, I think that was on page 3, have varied. It was the page where the construction costs have varied over the years. Okay, it was, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but I'd like to hear an explanation that I couldn't think of. So the Broomfield projects had a greater, much higher variance from the original estimates in similar timeframes than when you compared it to the Windy Gap project over the same period. So it looked like Windy Gap was able to estimate the project costs better than Broomfield. That was my takeaway from looking at that table. Is there an explanation for that I can't think of?
Obviously, the Windy Gap on Northern Water, they were working hand in hand with their design engineer. So that estimate is really close, as you had mentioned. The ones related to the various projects that we'd included in our 5-year long-range plan from the various years changed somewhat based on the difference in regulatory requirements. For instance, the construction of the Broomfield Reservoir. That number was the original number from 2003, the 38.5 million. In 2008, there was a contract that was actually presented to council to build the reservoir. Economic times came crashing down, and we weren't able to fulfill that at that point in time. And so that got delayed. And over the years, the construction cost has increased. The same engineer that did the original 68 in 2008, that estimate was 68.8 million. The engineer that did that estimate also did the $137 million estimate. So it was the same engineering team that actually designed that original one and gave us the updated one. So those were the numbers that were derived, both cases, from that engineer. The potable water storage tank, the size. If you look back in the 2015 CIP plan, it was identified as 2 tanks of 1 million gallons each. And it turned out to be where we needed 2 tanks at 3 million gallons each. So that was a much larger, 3 times the amount of volume. And then you have 10 years of cost increase. So that's part of why the water tank increase was the size of the project and the length of time between the original estimate versus when construction's actually happening. Water treatment tank. The original estimate came in at 16.8 million. The phase 1 actually came in at, I don't see that one in front of me. Oh, there it is. At 22, it was estimated at 10.35 million. And then at 22 million was the actual building cost. To be honest, I can't find why they estimated at 10.35 back in 2015. So I don't have an answer for that one at this point. I'd have to do some more research. Yeah. Okay. I guess we just, Northern also secured their construction contract before COVID. And so they were able to take advantage of not having those cost increases.
That would help. Okay.
And then the phase 2 of the water treatment plant, it's expanded. The original was estimated at 6 million. And remember, comp plants that our budget build out was going to be 95,000 people. And so we estimated that at 6 million gallon expansion. We're now looking at 119,000 people. So the expansion now has to be 10 million gallons. And so that is not quite a doubling, but it's a large increase of how much capacity we need to have. And that's a reason for a lot of that large increase there.
Okay, thank you. I had some questions about the URAF fund. With the demographics, I'd like to see the demographics of that too. We had at the end of February or something, we had in a CMO update, an initial look at the demographics, and that would be interesting to see. And my time is almost up.
We'll do a second round, Councilmember
Okay,
Lim.
so I'll save my other questions for the second round. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Anderson?
Thank you. I have some questions specifically related to the reuse system. And I'm just like curious if you can give us an update, if you're prepared to do this update on, a few years ago, we realized that reuse customers were overusing the allotted amount. Do we know what progress has been made? Are those customers getting down to their allotments and allowing the amount of water that we need for baseline? Or is there still a lot of work to be done there?
Yeah, overall, thank you for the question, Councilmember Anderson. We had made significant progress with many of the reuse users. They took advantage of the programs we offered through Reuse Central and having a water audit. They've made some improvements to their sprinkler systems overall. And so we made significant progress in reducing the amount they're over. We did send out billing notices about a month ago to those who exceed it. And we are continuing working with those who exceed it. They've asked more questions of how they can even further reduce their usage.
Overall good progress.
Yes, we made significant progress.
And then there have been inquiries over time, like I'm glad to know Red Leaf was able to join the system, and there's that question comes up from time to time, are there still shares of reuse available? And right now it's completely allotted. So is there ever, allocated, but is there ever like the potential in the future that any of the water as we acquire would come with reuse water, or is that capped completely?
We are currently not projecting to buy any significant amount of new water supply. We believe we have the significant volume to meet our future max population. With the firming of Windy Gap Water through the Chimney Hollow project, there's a potential we might be able to put some smaller users on, but nothing north of Highway 7. Everything would have to be south of Highway 7. So the infill, there's some opportunities for some infill.
Okay, that's actually very helpful. Okay, thank you. And then it comes back to the question of Great Western Reservoir and the future of the reservoir, which is yet to be determined. But if we did not replace that dam and let that water spill, then we would have to then, that would then impact our reuse customers, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's fair enough. That was my assumption. And then would that potentially, so right now the reuse water tank for the North Area Tank Project is currently will not, assuming we don't allocate the money in the budget, that would not be built, but then would that potentially be the solution many years down the road? Is that, or it wouldn't at all?
No, we're not projecting the need for the reuse water tank at all. There's other options, and that's what we need to model, is what do those options look like, and what is the impact, and what are the costs related to them compared to, doing the fix at Great Western Reservoir.
Okay, so more to come on that one. Okay, thank you. That was all of my questions there. So then on the feedback on the Enterprise Advisory Committee, I very much support staff's recommendation, kind of bring this forward, and these residents who have already shown great interest, taken the deep dive. hopefully we can incorporate like a question. Anyway, when we're asking for the people, because I don't want it to be limited, I want it to be open to anyone who wants to apply, but really like, what is your desire and how much engagement have you had through this process would be interesting to know. I originally, as we're sitting up here in this discussion, I originally thought, well, the 9 members sounds great. And then I'm hearing that the 5 members is more manageable. So I want to take staff's recommendation. If we think, as you discuss it further, we think we can accommodate 7 or 9, that sounds great. But if not, I would stick with the staff recommendation of 5. And I actually appreciate the alternates because every once in a while, because you want them. I think we also need to get that understanding of what an alternate is. It doesn't mean you show up and somebody else can't show up. It means you always show up. And then if somebody has to vacate the committee, you're there ready to take that spot. So I think we do want to keep the alternates, encourage them to come every meeting, and to provide feedback because they are able to share. So, and if we do keep it to that number, I think we need to encourage people to show up for public comment at the beginning, because I think all the committees take public comment right at the beginning. Most of them do. So if a member of the public who doesn't want as much involvement, but is concerned about their water bill or xeriscape, or hopefully we can capture a member with sustainability, like a focus in that main committee. But if not, they could show up and give public comment and maybe make that a focus of these meetings to gather the individuals who don't want to dive quite as deep. And so I think that answers the questions. So yeah, I support it and very much want it to be a highly functional committee. And if we can reserve spots in those upcoming 8 meetings where some of these individuals who are really looking into joining this committee to say, come join these, what did you call the on-site tours? The
Public Works, the water utility academies.
Oh, the academies. Yes, the academies to make sure that they're aware, joining the people who we think are going to be interested as we're also sharing it out, and so that they do get that information ahead of these greater discussions that they will ultimately have. So I very much look forward to that group, and that is my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So starting off with the Enterprise Advisory Committee, I'm very interested to see this committee formed and comprised of knowledgeable residents. I'm fine with staff's recommendation for the size and purpose of the committee to ensure that they are agile, but making sure that there is enough experienced representative. So I am open to a slightly larger group if that is needed. We have added youth participants to other committees. I'm wondering if this is a spot for youth participants within this committee. I'd be interested to see what staff's thoughts were on that. I don't believe that a third-party facilitator is needed unless staff feels that this is necessary to kind of start the work of this group, similar to what has been done with ACES, or what was done with ACES, where there was a facilitator that came in right at the beginning just to kind of help organize what that group was going to discuss in those kind of first few months to a year. Just to clarify, the facilitator for the meeting, the facilitator would be used for the meetings of the committee and not a facilitator to kind of form that committee. Is that correct? It would be okay. I see head nod, so I'll take that. The second question that I have is around the 2026 rate recommendations. So it sounds like that we're about 3 months into this process, and we're looking to kind of come to a recommendation in July. One of the thoughts that came up with our previous rate recommendations last year was utilizing general funds to temporarily offset those needed increases. And I'm wondering if that has been explored going into this rate increase, and if that is something that is still a possibility for if there are rate increases needed coming up in July.
Thanks for the question, Mayor Pro Tem. It is not best practice to look at the general fund to fund the enterprise funds, and as such, we've not yet explored that. Again, it's not best practice. Most municipalities or water districts don't do such a thing. it's always a possibility, although it's recommended to not do such a thing.
All right, thanks for that answer. Looking at the previous rate increase, I just wonder if that's something that could be utilized. So I appreciate the information though that you've provided. With the water meter conversion project. So I recall that starting in, I think it was January of 2019, there was a water meter conversion project that happened at that point that replaced a certain number of aging water meters in residential homes. I'm curious, were those water meters installed just as a temporary upgrade, or will these most recently upgraded water meters that happened in that kind of 2019 and through the pandemic, will those be the last water meters that are going to end up being swapped out then? Because those are the newest.
Mayor Pro Tem, the 2019 was the indoor meter replacement program. Those were upgraded to 20-year. This is to catch up the existing 12-year outdoor meters.
Okay.
To upgrade them to a 20-year. So they were not temporary. It was an indoor placement where we hired a third-party contractor to come schedule all those replacements with residents, and it's quite the load to get done. But that was on the indoor replacement only.
So this conversion will be for exterior water meters. Perfect. Thank you for the clarification. A couple questions from residents. So there was a question about flushing the fire hydrants that happens on an annual basis. Wondered if all that water that comes out of that hydrant ends up just going down the drain, well, down the sidewalk or down the infrastructure. I'm curious, is there a benefit to just running that water into the stormwater system, or is there a benefit to capturing that water and then putting that back into the system?
We do net benefits because a lot of our ponds are stormwater ponds that have kind of look more like amenities sometimes, but their function is for stormwater. And so it does provide a benefit as the water freshens up some of those ponds and provides fresh water for those ponds.
So there is a benefit to just allowing that water to run.
There is.
Perfect, thank you. And then another question from a resident around the Broomfield Reservoir. That was stated when it was first discussed that would be open to recreation. Is that still the plan, is to open that to recreation, or is that not going to happen?
Current thought on that discussion is that no, it will not be open to recreation opportunities. And mostly because it's a peaking reservoir. And so the water levels go up and down depending on the time of year.
Thank you. So the Great Western Reservoir, how long do we have before the dam fails and this becomes a crisis emergency situation? Is that going to be, do we anticipate that that's going to be before 2027 and thus why that decision point is there?
We're not anticipating that the dam itself fails.
Okay.
What the state engineer has classified it as conditional satisfactory, which most earthen dams are classified that way. The concern becomes if we do not begin to make progress towards the fix by 2030, the state engineer can come back and do a couple different things, which is one is reduce the amount of volume we can keep in Great Western, or two, tell us that we can't keep anything in Great Western. So, with some of it's based on what the state engineer's rulings are, how much progress we're making at that point in time. The key thing about the tow drain is basically what it's designed to do is absorb the water that is, my water rights guy may need to check me on this, but to absorb the water that's penetrating through the earthen dam and remove it from the dam so that it does not cause a failure.
Okay. And you said that date when the state engineer would come would be 2030?
He comes out every year. They meet with staff and our consulting engineer and then the state engineer. We all meet. We just met about a month ago with them, and he gave us, again, they renewed the conditional satisfactory assessment, and we updated him on our current plans, where we are with those plans, and we keep the state engineer involved and update it so that we can continue meeting their expectations from a regulatory standpoint and also ensuring the safety of our community.
Okay, all right, thanks for that. And then the last question I have is around emergency management. So sounds like that we have great emergency management within the city and county of Burnfield, but as we've seen, there are fires outside that impact our water supplies. And so one of those is most notably the Windy Gap, Northern Water, the fires that affected that system. Do we have do we know of the emergency responses that are associated with both Denver Water as well as the Windy Gap, Northern Water?
Yeah, both Denver Water and Northern Water have significant wildfire measures. Obviously, one of the concerns, and the same thing happens with Denver Water, or what happened on the Pooter a few years ago, was that the impact after the fire is all the sediment starts flowing into the reservoir, and then it makes it more difficult to treat. And that's one of the big issues is sediment and being able to remove that and treat it at the water treatment plants. So they do have it. We can provide council with an update of what Northern Water's plan is for the watershed.
That'd be great. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Delgadillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked my question in advance, as you know, so I don't have any questions. I'll just answer the questions here, which is that, yes, I do support the forming of this committee for the second one. Yeah, I'm good with that structure, although I'm sympathetic to what I'm hearing my colleagues saying about it'd be great if we could get more people, but I can see 5 with 2 alternates being a nice way to start. 3, if you all think a facilitator is useful for these purposes, then I am amenable toward that. I know lots of other committees run all right with that one, but again, I will leave that to your judgment. And then 4, yes, I'm supportive of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Leslie.
Thank you. Let me compliment City Manager Hoffman and the team for this initiative. It's very impressive. You've done a really good work here. Second, I support the advisory committee. You might consider, instead of having alternates, just add them to the committee, have 7 members. Stagger the terms if you want. I don't think you need a third-party facilitator. You have talent within the city that could help if you need that. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you. Any other council members want to weigh in on first round? I think everybody's gone first round. So let's go ahead and, if it's okay, take our 10-minute break or a little bit past that. And we'll come back at 8:32 and do a second round. I know there were some council members who had additional questions. So we'll go ahead and take our break now and be back in 10 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue with our quarterly enterprise update portion of the study session. We had finished our first round of questions from council, and now we're going to start the second round, starting with Councilmember Ward.
I remembered I pushed my button first, so I came running. Thank you, Mayor. So kind of to follow up on my line of questioning from before, and what Councilmember Limit asked, I know you said it was the meetings are going to be open to the public. Are they going to be recorded and or live streamed?
So another good question, and you know, staff just doesn't arbitrarily say it's a good question unless it really is a good question. And the reason I say that was a good question is because we talked about just that when we were putting the presentation together. It's difficult in the academies because it's not a classroom setting.
Yeah.
And there's anytime that you're mobile, it's more difficult for us. We'll be committed to you have to have qualifiers on the beginning, because if you say it's going to be recorded and the recording isn't clear, comprehensible, we'll get that feedback as well. So we'll do our best based on the topic of the academy to record what we can. The meetings themselves outside of the committee, outside of the academies, yes.
Okay.
I'm sure staff is going, wait a minute. But the meetings aren't mobile. Yes, again, with the qualifier that the recordings may not be completely clear, because if you go back and forth, if you're sitting at a table, right, like the conference room table, you may hear some clear and some not so clear. And we don't want to be spending a lot of time saying and repeating the question so that everybody understands it. So we'll do our best to capture it. But again, with a lot of qualifiers that it's not going to be this type of quality.
Okay. Just kind of hoping you were just saying, yes, we're good questions. We're just going to stroke your ego, which I certainly don't need or want. And I certainly did not think that the workshops or the academies were going to be recorded. That was no.
We did talk about that though. We did.
But I'm happy to hear that you're going to try the best you can. I think moving on to the facilitator, can staff go a little more in depth as to why you feel you need the facilitator? Because I'm having a hard time reconciling that in my brain.
So are we. So another good question. From a staff lift perspective, we all know that when you stand up a new committee, it's time consuming. And it's not just the byproduct of holding the meetings, right? It's preparing for what the topic is going to be. These quarterly updates, we've been preparing for this quarterly update for about 4 months in order to ensure that the information in the memo and the presentation is in alignment. That process will get smoother. It will be clunky originally. So I'm thinking, Councilmember Ward, that it's more about administrate, kind of like an admin that can help us corral the information that we need, chase down what we need, develop the agendas, make sure, you have RSVPs. Nobody facilitates, quite frankly, that I've seen in my career as well as Ken. But again, that's why part of the reorganization is so important. That is coming, Nancy, next week. So that Ken can really solely focus on the enterprise and we can have the dry side. that's part of it, to be able to ensure that he has capacity and time. But he's going to have some admin help. Let us work through that a little bit more. Ken, do you have anything to add on that? I certainly do not want to, I don't want to make a decision if you're feeling real strongly about the third party.
Councilmember Ward, in some of the professional organizations we belong to, like the Big Dry Creek Watershed Association, the Colorado Wastewater Utility Association, they do have like an admin person to help with some of that background stuff. It does help to keep the team going forward. There is a cost. And depending on what level of expertise that person has, it varies. This one would have to have pretty high level because we're talking about a lot of engineering stuff and a lot of financial stuff. So it would have to be, a high level type of third party. But I've seen it work, and and I've also seen it where there's some utilities that don't have it. So a lot of it kind of can go either way, really. I think there's some advantages, obviously, from a staff commitment to have a third party. So that's kind of where I'm at with it right now. I think the biggest thing is getting the committee kicked off and going.
Okay, thank you. In terms of funding that position, is that going to be coming from the general fund side or the enterprise fund side, given that we're talking about the enterprise fund and it's supposed to operate as its own entity?
Mr. Clark?
Yeah, that would come from the enterprise funds. It is a strict usage of enterprise funds. It would go to that account, but it wouldn't be a staff position. It would just be, 3 or 4 hours, and we'd be paying an hourly rate. I've seen it work at several places, and at least to start, I think it's a prudent way to start a committee, at least in the first 3 or 4 months, just to make sure that there's ground rules set and there's a good flow to the committee, at least in the first few meetings.
Okay, thank you. So to answer the questions, I do support the Enterprise Advisory Committee as being comprised of residents appointed by City Council. 5 members with 2 alternates is fine with me. Third-party facilitator in terms of just staff hours you guys don't have or whatnot is fine with me. In terms of the purpose, I don't have any problems with them making recommendations or suggestions and relaying those to City Council. I think my only point of contention is that while they're going more in depth, Council should also be going more in depth with the capital improvement project planning, financial planning, all of that, because at the end of the day, we vote on it. It's our responsibility, and we're the ones that are accountable to the users, i.e. the residents.
That's fair.
So with that caveat, I'd support it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councilmember Lim.
Yes, the whole situation with the Great Western Reservoir seems, in my mind, to put the whole future of the reuse system at question, which makes me shudder. I guess we're going to hear more about that. But I guess I think we need to take into account too the conservation of water in different sources that we have going on here with the reuse system. The energy, we save energy, we don't treat the reuse water as much. So I hope we keep all that into consideration as we assess that. Page 10 and 11 talked about the agreements, the development agreements with Baseline. Again, that made me shudder. There was a statement that the Highway 7 waterline project design is completed, but Baseline wants changes, so it's not finalized. Is Baseline going to throw off our construction timetable and make this whole thing cost more?
I think there's 2 points, and maybe it was confusing. There's one point that we are doing a water line replacement for Highway 7, and then there's another piece of that project that is a reimbursement to McWhinney. And the reimbursement, I'm going to have Matthew or someone talk to that a little bit more.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. So per the Managed Growth Development Agreement with McWhinney, the North Park project, we do reimburse for certain size utilities for both the water and the sanitary sewer system. And part of that, every year they project what projects will be moving forward. We take that, we put it within the budget each year.
Okay. So, I mean, I just raised these kind of questions because we always get questions from residents. Are the developers paying their way? And that's the kind of thing that looks like question mark, you know, are they paying their way? The Broomfield Reservoir, you mentioned was going to peak up and down. Is it ever going to be empty? Like it's going to sit there like a mud puddle next to wild grass?
Well, it kind of depends on weather conditions and droughts. The design for it is not to do that. So typically what we try to do on a peaking is typically the top 20% roughly is to handle that. And then obviously there is a dead pool, which is what you see at the bottom sometimes where they can't draw any more water out. And then there's the piece in the middle. And so the idea is to use the functional part of it for the most part, which is about 20%, 20 to 30%. And then in drought years, we could go down even deeper, maybe to 50%. But after that, it gets really difficult to treat.
Okay, so there'll be some level just for treatment. Okay, thank you. We have we do our planning based on what we anticipate as far as development with residential development. We're talking about mainly. What if we had a commercial application come in, like say a data center that uses a fair amount of water? If that kind of commercial were to apply, would there ever be a circumstance where we would say we haven't planned for enough water for that commercial application?
From our perspective, we evaluate every application that comes in and determine what is their water need, what are their requests for the amount of water they need, how much supply do we have, and does that affect our ability to serve our community at build out? Does that require us to buy more water? Then we say, no, we can't do that. So, or they bring the water. So from our perspective, we evaluate every application that comes in to ensure that it meets our long-term goals.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
All right, thank you very much. Any other second round questions from council? Do you have adequate guidance and direction on is there a button? Councilmember Anderson, your turn.
And I completely with as great of a budget as this is and all things considered, I think I would recommend that we do the facilitator, set it up correctly in the beginning to start, and then when the time comes that's no longer needed, then just no longer have the facilitator. But I think that would actually be a really helpful piece to have. That was it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Mayor, could we get just some clarification on, it sounds like between 5 and 9, 7 is a good number. Can we all say 7 is the target number? Yep.
That looks like, yeah.
Great. We'll turn it around quickly for an expedited process. So it won't be anything near where like boards and commissions are.
Right.
Where there's a big interview process. It will definitely be expedited, and just know that next year at this time, we'll be able to reevaluate and we'll take what's working and either emphasize it or moderate it or change it altogether. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you guys have then
We're good.
what you need? I
I
appreciate.
believe so. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you all so much for your work on this and the great discussion. And more to come. Our final item this evening is a discussion regarding recreational vehicle long-term parking on public streets. I'd call this round 4 since I've been on council. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, and I'll ask our staff to begin the discussion.
And making his way down is Brandon Murray. Welcome, Brandon. We don't get to spend very much time with you here.
It's been a while.
Hello.
Yes.
Good to
Welcome.
see your face. We always see your name.
Yeah, yeah, my name. Not sure if that's a good thing or not, but good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council members. Happy birthday, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'm here tonight to talk about the long-term parking of recreational vehicles on our public streets. So next slide, please. Broomfield does not have an existing municipal code that regulates the amount of time any vehicle can be parked in one location. That's any residential street, any public right of way. And when I'm talking about recreational vehicles, just to clarify, we're talking about travel trailers, motor homes, any kind of camper, things that are designed for temporary sleeping quarters when you're out camping in the Colorado wilderness. In these days and age, you see a lot of different combos as well, utility trailers with partial campers on them and things. So that's kind of what we're talking about tonight. So next slide, please. Just some basic background data. For code compliance, last year we received 91 complaints from residents involving recreational vehicles. 44 of those, a violation notice was issued for an existing municipal code violation. I'll go over the codes that we do have in place here in a moment. 47 of those, though, were not in violation of any current municipal code. So those folks were replying back, telling folks that, yeah, that RV is not in violation of any current code. There were 58 violations related to recreational vehicles that were initiated by a code compliance officer. And this is kind of proactive activity. They're out driving around in the neighborhoods and they see this on their own. We had 4 tows of recreational vehicles. So we had towed away 4 of those. And then we did issue 3 court summonses. And our stance has always been, we prefer voluntary compliance over punitive measures anytime. So we really strive to gain that voluntary compliance before we ever issue a summons. And that's kind of reflected there. Next slide, please. So our current codes. We have a junk vehicle ordinance. And this, in general terms, it's vehicles that aren't capable of operating in their current condition. Those that are dismantled, partially dismantled, discarded, wrecked, demolished, or any vehicle designed for highway travel that does not bear a current license plate or has a license certificate. And this is a code that's applicable on private and public property. Next slide, please. This code accounts for the majority of work that code compliance does across everything. We get the number one complaint we receive is about junk vehicles. It does require a 15-day notice in most situations where we give that owner of the vehicle 15 days to correct the defective nature of the vehicle to come into compliance. We can tow those vehicles or we can issue court summonses for those violations. And then importantly, the complaints about vehicles being parked long-term, especially recreational vehicles, we sometimes can address the complaint through this junk vehicle ordinance. Somebody calls in, says, this vehicle, this RV has been parked here for 3 months, 4 months, a year. We will go out and check those vehicles. And oftentimes, or at least sometimes, those vehicles have expired plates or they're inoperable in some other way, and we can address that violation. Next slide, please. We also have some codes about oversized vehicles, and these are vehicles that are over 6 feet in height. And basically, you can't park one of those within 30 feet of an intersection or crosswalk, or one within 10 feet of a public or private driveway. This also goes for the person's own driveway. So a person cannot park an RV on the street in front of their house within 10 feet of their own driveway. And oftentimes, again, we might be able to address some of these complaints through this ordinance that exists currently. Next slide. And then there's some general parking violations that kind of apply to all vehicles. Can't park and obstruct a traffic control device. Trailers must always remain attached to a towing vehicle when they're on the street. And of course, vehicles can't be parked in front of driveways, fire hydrants, crosswalks, and the like. Next slide. There is an abandonment of motor vehicle state statute. This is not enforced by code compliance because it is a state law, and code compliance officers are only authorized to enforce municipal code. So this falls on police officers to enforce. That's generally not applicable. Think in terms of the vehicle that has been truly abandoned and somebody's moved down a state or moved to another part of the state and has just simply left this vehicle to rot away. And over time, all the tires flatten. We get calls, we leave some notices, don't get any response back from anybody. And it starts becoming pretty clear that it's abandoned. And we can tow it at that point or have a police officer tow it. Next slide, please. So resident concerns that we often hear about specifically regarding recreational vehicles. They reduce the availability of parking for other residents and their guests in these neighborhoods. These are big vehicles and they take up a lot of space on these roadways. They can obstruct the ability of Broomfield staff to thoroughly sweep public streets and perform other maintenance operations. Weeds and other debris can accumulate around the vehicles. We have seen several inches of dirt and other debris pile up under these vehicles that have been parked for long term. It can reduce the width of the traveled portion of the street with these larger vehicles. Slide downs and other hazards associated with the recreational vehicles can extend out into the travel portion of the roadway or into the sidewalk area as well. Truck mounted campers, we see those stored on the public right of way as well, where they take them out of the truck bed and just lay them there on the street. Connected electrical and water lines, we see those run across sidewalks and parts of the public right of way to power and run water to their RVs. And those obviously could be tripping hazards, electrical hazards to pedestrians going along the sidewalk. Affect delivery services such as trash and USPS, obstruct emergency vehicles, and by the repairs and maintenance that are being conducted on some of these vehicles. Next slide. Residents have also expressed concern about boats and other off-road vehicles and things parked in the front yard of residential properties or on the driveways. We do have a current ordinance that prohibits vehicles and trailers being parked basically in the front yard and limits these vehicles to be parked on the driveway or right next to the driveway. And then a vehicle over 6 feet must be set back 5 feet from the flow line of a public right of way. And we're talking about on private property here now. And they can't be within 18 inches of the sidewalk. So think of like a big RV that's parked up on somebody's driveway. It's got to be 18 inches back from the public sidewalk. This is a good example of that. Next slide. Code compliance officers can validate a lot of these concerns. They're out in these neighborhoods and they see a lot of these things every day related to some of these RVs. Opal Street is a great example. Opal Street behind King Soopers. That can turn into a RV parking lot, especially over the summer months. And I mean, they're parked all the way up and down Opal Street, and we will start getting a lot of complaints about those here in the warmer months. We know of a lot of vehicles that have been parked on public streets and haven't moved for over 12 months. We also know some of these RVs are not registered to owner or to people that live in Broomfield. I'll show you here in a moment. Most of the resident or area jurisdictions have restrictions. They're a lot tighter than Broomfield, and some RVs know that, and they know they can come into Broomfield and park their RV, and we're not going to bother them with it. And again, connected electrical and water lines. These are things code compliance officers have seen. RV steps extended and obstruct the sidewalk. Oftentimes they park these vehicles on the sidewalk to keep them level as they're servicing them. Again, the slide downs, the detached trailers, there are line of sight concerns near intersections and crosswalks. And again, those truck mounted campers. Next slide, please. So I just alluded to this a minute ago. These are just some basic information about area jurisdictions. Everybody just about that we surveyed has some sort of restriction, whether it's 48 hours, which is pretty common, 24 hours. Thornton, you can only park an RV in Thornton to load and unload. There's no time allowed other than that. And then there's some permit exceptions where somebody can get a permit and park the RV in front of their house for longer than that 48-hour period. Maybe they've got relatives staying in town or something, and they want to, and that jurisdiction allows somebody to park and hook up to utilities perhaps and stay for 7 days. But those permit conditions do vary pretty wildly between jurisdictions. Next slide, please. Possible solutions to this, basically pretty short and sweet here. We can amend the, or not amend the BMC code and continue to enforce existing codes, or we can look at amending our municipal code and limit parking of all recreation vehicles to a specific period of time. Next slide. There are some enforcement concerns. I know the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled a couple of years back that simply chalking tires is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And that's restricted some agencies of just going along and using the old chalking the tire method as to determine if a car is moved or not. Then there's issues of whether the vehicle was moved and reparked in the same location. These things can be addressed by a good written, a well-written code, but they are some concerns that do come to mind. We do receive, we routinely receive complaints related to RVs. And if we prohibit the long-term parking of recreational vehicles, it would undoubtedly create an impact on our resources. How significant, it's kind of difficult to tell, but it's something we could handle, but there'll be an impact on our resources. Next slide. So basically, we've got the questions now. Number one, does council desire staff to draft an ordinance to address the long-term parking of recreational vehicles or other similar large vehicles and campers on street? And if so, number two, should the ordinance be drafted to address the size of the vehicle so that large trailers and other oversized vehicles are included in addition to recreational vehicles? Three, should the ordinance address a fine-only system tied to a specific time frame requirement, such as 72 hours, as recommended by staff? Or should a permit be required to park an oversized recreational vehicle on a public street for an extended period of time? Staff doesn't recommend the permit simply because of the resources it would take. Somebody's got to accept those permits, issue those permits, monitor those permits. And this time we don't recommend the permit system. Number five, should the regulations be drafted to apply to all public streets, which was what we recommend? Because we do see these vehicles down off of in our industrial areas and commercial areas as well. No, it's not just limited to residential districts. And yeah, thank you very much. Happy to answer any questions. And I've got a great supporting staff behind me here too to help it.
I see that. Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. We'll go to council questions and comments, starting with Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for bringing this information to us. I have probably the number one complaint that I've received from residents in my ward is on these issues related to RVs parked in the neighborhoods, related to everything you've talked about, the sight lines in the corners, but in Willow Run neighborhood, for example. I get a lot of complaints about that. A couple questions I had for you, and actually for Ms. Rogers too, probably. You mentioned the first slide you had 91 complaints and 58. Was it proactive that you all, I guess my question is that a total of 149
Correct.
different vehicles?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, 91 complaints received by the community, by residents, and then an additional 58 that code compliance officers observed on their own.
And so all 58 of the violations from you all were actual violations, and then 47 of the 91. Is that the way I'm reading it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Thank you. And then Ms. Rogers, and maybe you all, I noticed in the memo, this is surprised me that HOAs can no longer prohibit RV parking on their streets.
Yes, so the state law, as council might recall, when we're talking about turf and also flags and HOAs, a state law was passed to change the state law that governs HOAs, the Common Interest Ownership Act, that pretty much prohibited HOAs from regulating RVs any more strictly than in the community where that HOA is.
Okay. Have we seen, since that's obviously passed 2 years ago, 3 years ago, have we seen any issues in the HOAs areas, or do the people not know that they can do that?
I can jump on that, Brandon, if you don't mind. I did reach out to a couple of friends of mine who work directly with HOAs to ask that question, have we seen a tangible impact? And they said it really depends on the HOAs, but a lot of the HOAs were still trying to work with voluntary compliance and sort of a community bent with their community to say, we all agreed to live here, we all agreed, like almost acting like a good neighbor to going by somebody's house and saying, hey, can you move your RV? We want to live here. Now, enforcement of a covenant, that's where they've had to draw the line lately, and that has changed a little bit in the 2 years.
Have we seen any impact here in Broomfield? Have you seen any issues in HOA areas?
I can say, because we're not patrolling for those covenants, I can't say we've seen an increase in vehicles parked along the roadways in the HOA areas. What I can say is we have received an increase in complaints and inquiries, both from residents and those on HOA boards throughout Broomfield, calling us and saying, hey, our hands are tied. Can you help us with this? And the answer most of the time is no, that's a covenant. But again, we'll come out and take a look. And if it fits in one of the existing codes, we can take care of it.
Okay.
But we've definitely seen an increase.
So I guess what my question is, as residents in those areas become more knowledgeable, do we expect it to be more that they will?
Yes, I would expect that.
Okay. And then that's my only really questions. I brought this forward, so I do support this, obviously. Can you go back to the questions just to give the specifics on the slide? So yes, I want to see an ordinance to address recreational vehicles. 2, yes, that sounds like what staff is recommending. 3, yes, as recommended by staff. 4, no, and 5, basically staff recommendations on all these apply to all public streets. So does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Sure. Can I maybe drill down? Is the 72 hours a staff recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
That seemed to be that seemed to be what
Westminster.
everybody else kind of seemed to do. So that makes sense. Looks like we're the outlier right now. So
Apparently. Okay.
that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have to put my glasses on. Councilmember Henkel, wow.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, we're always the outlier, no matter what the case is, it seems. Thanks for all of your work, and I know that code compliance is not always the easiest, area to work in. We try to run this fine line of, private property and public property. What does that look like? So I just want to reiterate, this is not for private property. We've had complaints like on a business parking lot or whatnot. Can you just address that for the public?
Correct. A proposed ordinance would be just for, would limit RVs or oversized vehicles to a time parked on a public street or a residential street. It would not impact a vehicle, an RV parked up on somebody's driveway or on private property or in like shopping centers, the Walmart parking lot, Safeway, those locations.
Okay, thank you. And then the 47 that were not in violation, what exempted them from being in violation? Do you happen to have any sort of idea on the data on that?
Sure, mainly they had valid license plates, appeared operable, and were otherwise legally parked. So they weren't obstructing a crosswalk or a traffic control sign. They weren't within 10 feet of a driveway. So they didn't meet any of those other current codes. And so, yeah, they weren't in violation and we left them be.
And then do you know if we've done any sort of analysis on if they need to move their RVs, where would they move them to? Is there capacity in Broomfield to move their RVs somewhere close by? Or would they have to move them to like Greeley or, some sort of farther place up north? Or I don't know. I don't own an RV.
There has been no analysis on that. Just speaking with RV owners, I do know there's some capacity within Broomfield, but I do know a lot of them store them out east further. I don't know if it's just availability or cost and what those factors are, but I know a lot of our RVs that do store them, some distance away.
Yeah, okay. I think it'd be just kind of for us to be a good neighbor as city and county, if we're gonna, move forward with an ordinance like this, that we just sort of tell them about the different areas, maybe that they could store their vehicles or, something like that. And then last question, the ordinances, do you mind going back to that slide? The ordinances that are in other jurisdictions, please. Just wanted to look at those. Those look like pretty standard 48 hours. And you said we're looking at 72 hours. Is that correct? And so which ones have been most effective, or have we heard from those jurisdictions as to, are these ordinances effective in their areas? I don't know.
I have spoken to several of my colleagues in other jurisdictions, and for the most part, yes, they are effective. It really comes down to writing a good code from the beginning that makes it easier to enforce.
Can I have the questions, please? Thank you so much. I do support that we draft an ordinance to address long-term parking. The ordinance be drafted to address the size of vehicles. Yes. Should it address a fine? Only yes. We don't recommend permit. I don't want to deal with that. I can't imagine anyone who owns an RV wants to deal with that either. And then should the regulations be drafted to apply to all public streets? Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. Quick question on question number 3, the 72 hours. Is that just 72 hours straight, or is that 72 hours within a certain time frame? Like the presentation mentions that I think it's Arvada and Westminster and Denver have 48, 72, and 24 respectively within a week time frame.
Correct. And that would be my recommendation is within a certain time frame. Whether the 72 hours within a week period.
Okay.
Would be the likely outcome of that.
Okay, thank you. In terms of oversized vehicles for question number 2. Are we using the definition in the code that exists where like vehicles over 6 feet tall can't be parked in certain circumstances, et cetera? Are we going to use a different metric?
I think that would need additional analysis. The code that specifies 6 feet for an oversized vehicle, I believe was passed in the early 70s or maybe even earlier, when there were not many vehicles over 6 feet. Now, a lot of, I mean, the code compliance trucks we drive are 6 feet high. So, yeah, we would need a little bit more research into that and analysis, but I don't foresee 6 feet being the practical description for an oversized vehicle.
Alrighty, Councilman Delgadillo and I were talking about how most full-size SUVs and trucks nowadays are well over 6 feet just from the factory, let alone any sort of aftermarket systems you may put on. I guess the big question I have is, are the issues we're trying to address the ones that are listed on, I think it's slide 9 of the presentation, that residents frequently report concerns about reduced parking availability, obstruction of street sweeping, et cetera? Or is there an actual problem?
No, I believe these concerns sum up the majority of the concerns we hear about and that we observe during our rounds through the neighborhoods. There are definitely some legitimate safety concerns beyond just parking, say, too close to a crosswalk or to a private driveway. As I said, a lot of these RVs, they're plugged into utilities, and those lines run across a public right of way and create different hazards. Portions of those vehicles extend further out into the street. And so you could have a vehicle parked mid-block away from any other, from a fire hydrant or crosswalk, and then have these slide outs extended out into the right of way.
I feel like that's more of a problem of just having an ordinance that says you can't do that versus prohibiting parking in general. But, I mean, to answer the questions, I really don't care if we have a long-term parking for this, so sure, I'll just say yes, we can address it. Yes, we can go with drafting an ordinance to address the size of the vehicle for large trailers and other oversized vehicles to be included. If we're gonna go with the 72 hours, that's fine with me. Within a week time frame, I'm fine with that. I will be fine with going with the permit system for RVs, or not having the permit system for RVs with the staff recommendation. And then for question number 5, I assume most of our complaints are on residential and not commercial streets, quote unquote.
Correct. Most are residential areas.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm fine with question number 5 being applied to all public streets and not just commercial, but just find it how lovely we're being very nitpicky with everything. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. And Councilmember Ward started the questions I was thinking of with the vehicle height. I've been waiting a couple of years to finally get to talk about this because I actually have there are some homes even in the Anthem area, and it's going to continue on to Baseline and areas where the yards are getting shorter. There are people with full-size pickup trucks who can't even physically park their vehicle in their front yard. They have to park down the street. So this one, I think what I heard you say, I just want to confirm it, that you will be looking at those vehicle heights and adjusting the 72 inches to accommodate pickup trucks so that they are not. Does this address the parking issues close to the corner, like with the 18 inches or whatever from the edges of the lots, or that would still be an issue?
The 18 inches from the public sidewalk, that is related to vehicles parked up on the driveway. But that 6-foot height requirement is in there. But yeah, there has been some staff discussion about updating that ordinance that specifies the 6-foot height. Because yeah, I don't think there were many vehicles back in the early 70s that were 6 feet in height, but there's a ton of them now. And
Is there
I'm not sure I'm answering your
So is there
question.
an opportunity to address the vehicle heights while we're doing this update for the?
Sure.
Okay.
I
And-
would think that we could address that.
Okay, because that was one that still bothers me and obviously I mean, you look at the safety too, because some of these vehicles do get really big and they do reduce the line of sight. So like without. And if there's some way to look into that right at the same time, and update that. And also I looked at the tailgates. And some of these trucks are 45 to 55 inches and the code is 42 inches. So any part of the vehicle above 42 inches. So even if you park your tailgate, there's another requirement that's more strict later in the code and it's related to that tailgate height. So even that 42 inches is no longer
Correct.
accurate. So that I think is almost like more the concerns where I've been having in my communities, like I don't hear much about RV parking, and now that we're publicizing that HOAs don't have as much control, this could become a problem now. So up until now, I haven't seen it, and I haven't had these complaints, like some of my colleagues have had. So I would love if we could address the vehicle heights as part of this. If it works into it, that'd be great. These specific questions, I am totally fine with. Number one, to draft the ordinance and. What was, okay, hang on, I actually, this is like too many questions. Okay, so, yes, on the first two questions, and then it was the third one, the 72 hours. I was curious, because it was noted in the documentation that there've been questions of like, if the grandparents come to stay for a week, would it be too much to say, let's increase this to 7 days or 10 days to allow for visitors like that? Because anyone who's having a routine problem that's been going on for years, I think could tolerate the 10 days over the 72 hours. As a consideration given to that, which would then allow, where we don't want to do the permits, it would give enough time. That's not unreasonable, is it?
Well, I wouldn't say unreasonable. There hasn't been a lot of discussion about that. We do have other ordinances, or one other ordinance that prohibits any sleeping or living in an RV
Well, then that.
presently. So, we did not approach this from the idea that we would go against that particular code, that we would continue to prohibit any kind of sleeping, living, dining, and activities such as that within an RV while it's parked on a public street.
Okay.
And our auxiliary dwelling unit ordinance prohibits anybody from living in an RV when it's parked on private property. So current ordinances prohibit anyone from sleeping or living in an RV while it's parked, whether on the street or on their driveway.
Okay, so from that standpoint, then the 72-hour sounds like a great idea. I didn't even realize we had that ordinance. Okay. And yeah, and all public streets is fine. So that is my feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lim.
Do you have a rough estimate of the 47 possible violations that were reported by residents that you found not in violation of current code? What percentage of those would have been found in violation of the recommended code that we're looking at?
It's probably a difficult question to ask because we
We weren't thinking of that at the
thinking about
time.
that when we were there. I would guess a fair number of them.
Okay.
Because we are aware of a number of RVs around town. I can name specific places where RVs have sat for years. And they leave and go, they're gone for a weekend or so while the folks are out enjoying it. And then they're right back in the same spot on Monday morning. So I would venture to say many of those would be in violation of
The
this
proposed code.
proposed ordinance.
Okay, thank you. When you said that there are some RVs that park near commercial property, are there any instances where the RVs that are parked there actually belong to the businesses that are there? And is that a different issue then that we have?
I can't think of any examples of that.
Okay, that's
What
good.
comes to mind is down off of like Teller
Mhm.
and
Yeah, that's
Upham and those areas. We do have a lot of RVs that get parked along those streets. But the ones I'm thinking of were not associated with businesses, because it's usually business owners calling us and
Okay.
saying, please come out and handle this.
Okay. When you said this will undoubtedly take, if we go ahead with this proposal, that it will take code compliance more time. It seems like some of the regulations that we pass that are subject to code compliance, we are told at times that, well, it'll be based on resident complaints. It won't be a proactive effort by code compliance. So I guess when you say this is going to take code compliance a lot more time, are you thinking that a lot more residents are going to report this? Or are you thinking that you as code compliance are going to be more proactive?
A little bit of both. Overall, about somewhere around 70% of code compliance activity is initiated by the officer themselves. But that's generally for like the top violations, junk vehicles being one of them, tall weeds, encroachments, and things like that. This particular ordinance would be one of those that wouldn't be one of the top violations, and it would be primarily initiated by a resident complaint. However, when the officer does respond to that complaint and they address that, they're expected to check the rest of the area. We don't want to go and address one violation and ignore another one that's 2 blocks away. So where I see that increasing the workload on us is not only a complaint, because we will get those, but then that initiates additional enforcement activity in that vicinity for other vehicles that would be in violation of that ordinance.
Okay, yeah.
Councilmember Lim, can I also add a component to this? With having a violation now that a code enforcement officer could issue an actual ticket for, there's also then the writing up before they'd say, I'm sorry, it's not a violation, just go on their way. Now they'll write the ticket. Now the person could contest it. We have more court time. They work with a member of my staff on preparing to get the pictures, get all ready. So there is sort of the case component on having more violations. That'll be some additional time as well.
I see. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm answering the questions. Number 1, yes. Number 2, yes. Number 3, yes. Number 4, no. Number 5, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilmember Cohen.
Thank you, Mayor. I got a quick question. I live in an HOA, so there's sort of, as the city attorney mentioned, the honor system that I guess it takes 3 days to clean your RV before you go on a trip and 3 days to clean it out after you come back. And that's the system. Hypothetically, let's say there's a family that hypothetically has someone come from out of state and they stay 2 weeks in their RV in front of the house. And it's been going on for years and no one has said boo. Are we getting in the way of people in that I think Councilmember Anderson mentioned grandparents might come and stay in the RV because there's not room in the house, or they put the kids in the RV. I think it was Castle Rock that had an allowance that if the owner posts the day they intend to leave or something, they're given an allowance. So there's at least some notification from the owner that this isn't going to be here for 2 months. I'm going to be gone by the 14th of the month or something. And then they're given some leeway. Or there's some other, or how do you enforce it? It's from 72 hours from the time you see it or from it's reported. So it could have been there a week before and you're still given another 72 hours. But have you looked at any of the other communities that maybe allow some leeway from established patterns where it's your front of your house and it's somebody you know? Or do they need to drive around the block one day and come back and reestablish the clock?
Those are good questions and answers that I don't think we have quite yet. I do believe there is a lot of very well-written codes out there from other jurisdictions that have addressed that and given some leeway, as you say. But every time you kind of open that door for some leeway, it does make enforcement a little bit more difficult, unless you can craft that language to help with that. So I guess I don't have a real clear answer on that. But again, enforcement of this would be just like we do with anything else. We're not going to roll right out and leave a ticket on their RV. That's not how we do business. That's not how we've ever done it. And I don't foresee doing it in this case. It would be, we go out and talk to the owner, leave a courtesy notice on their vehicle and give them a period of time, whether that's 24 hours or the 72 hours. If we don't have a complainant that establishes that it's been there for any longer, and then we'll come back ourselves after 72 hours. And if it's still there, then we can establish that at that point.
If it moved across the street, does then the 72 hours start over?
Well, and that's where a lot of those jurisdictions have put language in the code that simply moving it to evade that 72 hours is not an exemption to the code. So I would foresee putting something in there like
My sense is no one's really upset with grandma and grandpa staying for a week. The ones you mentioned, I forget the street, but I assume that was 120th King Supers. Was that what, or I don't know where Opal Street is.
Opal Street, yeah, it's up behind the wall, behind the King Supers on 287.
Oh, on 287. Yeah. Okay. Other side of town. Okay. That is more of a nuisance where it's people who they don't live there. They're just storing their RVs there, getting away with it. Is that the
It's
issue?
been a little bit of both, but primarily it's people storing RVs.
Yeah. And the issue there is, other than just that it's not permitted, is there a danger or nuisance or?
It can narrow that roadway pretty significantly.
For
So I
fire
believe there's a
safety.
safety issue. And I think for the residents, it's an aesthetic issue too. I mean, they pull out of their driveways there and all they see is RVs. And the residents I've called us have said it's aesthetic. Doesn't make their
I'm sure there's
neighborhood look
noise and
nice.
other things too. Okay. All right, thank you. I mean, I'm in favor of something because I know there's a desire to have some enforcement when there's an issue. I would like to see some mechanism. I mean, if it's your home and your RV, if it's your family member and they're staying 5 days, that there's some way they can notice it maybe, and that buys them 2 more days or something of that nature. Because it sounds like we're really not targeting that. We're targeting what you're describing on the King Super, where fire safety is affected or some other nuisance is occurring. So I agree with 1 through 4 then. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And next, Councilmember Leslie.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I agree. I'm not sure 72 hours is enough. I'm not sure again what the other cities are doing, but I would think maybe 5 to 7 days would be more appropriate for the reasons that Councilmember Cohen is saying. I agree with that. 4, I just don't know how you're going to measure. That's the thing. I'd welcome your coming back with a recommendation on how you do that. If you're not going to do some kind of a permit, then how do you know when it starts and when it ends, because they're gone? But you need to know when it begins. So there's got to be some mechanism, whether it's some kind of a Facebook account or something where they check in or whatever. But I think for me, that's the missing element here. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Delgadillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just answer the questions. Yes, sounds like we're going in that direction for the first one. Happy to see an ordinance. Second, yes, that makes sense. In terms of the time frame, yeah, I'd like to see that included. It sounds like we're centering around 72 hours, which I think is fine, seems to be the norm. I actually am sympathetic to a longer time period, but happy with 72. No permit for the 4th one. And then, yes, all public streets. And thank you for the clarification about those public lots or the private lots as well, because I know a lot of places are a lot more chill about that. I'd also point out that actually, shout out to the gym I go to, G1, Ward 2, wonderful resident, a wonderful spot. We have a lot of folks who climb. They work seasonally, and then in the during sun season, they go outside and they climb. And that gym's policy is that people can put their vans that they kind of live in seasonally, they'll park there. So as long as we can continue to allow that kind of use, because these are members of our community who do engage in this sort of thing, I think that's great, but we have that covered. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other council members to weigh in? It sounds like you have consensus to move forward. Maybe not completely clear on the time limit. Where did you land in any one place? Was there a majority that said 72 or more or less?
I heard a majority say 72, but there was
Um,
2, 3 folks that I mentioned a little bit longer might
Longer.
be, so.
But since people can't sleep in them anyway, you know, grandma and grandpa have to find another place to sleep anyway, park it at an RV park. What I find interesting is because this is the first time we've discussed this as the council, but the RV owners aren't here tonight, but they will be next time. And I've evolved on this topic over time. At first, I supported this, and then I heard from a lot of RV owners that said, you know, they chose the neighborhood where they lived so they can park their RV there. And so they didn't move to an HOA, a covenant restricted neighborhood, because they can't afford storage. You know, they put all their money into this RV, and this is their way to vacation, and it would be a hardship. So we will hear that, I'm sure. And I get it. You know, it's kind of like moving the goalposts on people who bought into a certain subdivision with certain regulations, and then it's changed, kind of like what the state's doing right now with all their preemption. So I'm just putting it out there in a neutral way, but we will hear from those folks as well as we move forward. So thank you so much for putting this together, and I guess we'll see you when it comes back, Mr. O and team.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. That concludes the items on this evening's study session agenda. Is there any other business to come before the council from my colleagues and staff? There being no further business, the study session is adjourned. Good night.